Welcome back. Part two of FTF 12. Hope everyone is okay, had a chance to get a bit of refreshment. And well, we've got an action-packed second half, Tony.
Yeah, honestly, I was delighted with how the morning session went. Brilliant contributions from our speakers. So yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this afternoon. It's a bit longer, Ryan might have to have a stop somewhere. I think he did the full 2.5 hours without a comfort break.
That's all right.
But he's fine. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to, we've got, is it 6 speakers over the next 3 hours? Yeah, we've got 6 speakers, everything to do with football transfers, anything involving football transfers. We've got some great speakers lined up for this afternoon.
We have. So let's get cracking straight away. And we're gonna bring Freya into the chat. So 1 second.
Hey, Freya.
Hello, how are you?
Really good. How are you?
Yeah, long time no see, Tony. Long time no see.
Well, yeah, just to let everyone know, Freya, we met for the first time actually up at Newcastle United. Newcastle a couple of weekends ago. Did you enjoy your trip up north?
Yeah, I did. I think I was on the fence that day, so it was a draw, so it helped me out a fair bit. I can't say that too loud. I know you represent Becky, but a draw was good for me, I say.
Well, a last kick of the game equaliser from Newcastle. Everyone left the ground from Newcastle feeling like it had been a point gained, not 2 points dropped.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're not wrong.
And did you have a nice time in Newcastle?
Yeah, I love it up there. I'm slowly starting to hopefully become a Geordie. But yeah, quite clearly my accent's from Bristol, so that's not going to change anytime soon. But no, it's always a good trip up north. The fans are great. It's always a good occasion.
And just to give everyone a bit of background, I asked Jo Tung, who has helped us on the last, she's been tremendous, one of the top leading women's agents. She represents Emma Hayes and others. She represents people in the men's game as well. She's helped me enormously on these last couple of football transfer forums. And I actually said to Jo, would you recommend a female agent to come on and talk about this? And she recommended you, Freya.
I'll have to pay her later for that.
High praise indeed. You've got a lot to, you've got Joe's rubber stamp of approval. But, when I met you, I was convinced that you were the perfect person to have on our Football Transfer Forum 12 online. So listen, Freya, let's start. You work for Integral. Is it Integral or Integral?
Integral, and it kind of so integrity is part of the business. That's why obviously the founders set it up. So that's why the name has come apparent.
So give us a bit of an overview of what you guys are doing.
Sure. So Ray Winston, the actor, as I'm sure many of you know, and Gary Pettit, business owner in London, set up the agency. As we probably all know, agents are notorious for being wrong uns. Not everyone, as you've all said, we know there is good eggs in the game, and that's for sure. But they wanted to kind of switch the narrative around that and provide an agency that is more personable, be there, more hands-on for the good times and unfortunately the bad. So those two set it up, unfortunately for them, a month or so before COVID. So not the best time to start a business. Unfortunately, but yeah, so that's been going now for 4 years. They started with football, tennis, and golf, and the mainstream now being football, which obviously I'm head of women's football.
Yeah, so it's a multi-sport agency, is it? And it's multi-sport. Are you in the men's game as well?
Yeah. So we have a director of men's football who oversees that. Sort of mantra and what we're about is bringing the youth through. So there's a lot of lads that, touch wood, will be the next internationals and the big hitters, hopefully.
And let's face it, if anyone knows a wrong un, it's Ray Winston. He's played enough wrong uns in his time to know what a wrong un looks like. So just tell us a bit more. Is he hands-on? Is he in the building? Is he talking to you guys? Is he busy filming his latest blockbuster?
Yeah, well, he's certainly busy. That's for sure. I would say what you see is what you get, but then everyone sees the gangster side. So he's definitely not that. He was actually at our clients' games last night. We had two playing for Maidenhead. So he'll come in and watch when he's back in England. But he has a place abroad, so he's there quite a lot of the time. But he's kind of, his role is there to support the clients that we have. Be there, like I say, for the good times and the not so good times, and he'll be on meetings to suggest how he thinks we can get to the next level.
Yeah.
We're 4 or 5 years old, so we're always looking to grow, and he obviously wants to be a big part of that.
How old do you say you were?
Myself, 23.
No, the agency. Sorry, the
Oh,
agency.
I was going to say 4 years old.
4 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think a bollocking from Ray Winston would be pretty horrendous. Have you had that one yet in your first?
No, we seem to have quite a good relationship. I don't know why. Maybe I'm scared of him. No, but jokes aside, we have a good relationship.
Do you know what acting is?
Oh yeah. This is not going to be a session just talking about Ray Winston, although I think I could do it. I think I've seen a few of his films, and I know you're not a big film buff. So let's move on to the football. Just tell us a little bit about, your pathway and yourself. How did you become obviously you've passed the agent's exam, and more of that later, but tell us what led you into it.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit and lie. I wasn't there at 10, 15 years old when I'm like, oh, I really want to be an agent. Because as we all know, and I've said it before, they have a certain name to them. And obviously we're all trying to change that and hopefully doing that successfully. But I always knew I used to play. So I always knew I wanted a career within football or within sport. So at college, I studied sports journalism. I wanted to go down the media route. But yeah, again, obviously COVID hit and we had lockdown and as we were coming out of that, I was that person who we all probably get emails from where you're just nagging people for work experience. I'll take anything. Like, I'm keen as mustard, give me a chance. So I emailed literally everyone. At some points I was working on Antidex Saturday night takeaway. Nothing to do with sport, nothing to do with football.
Oh, wow.
But when someone says yes to you regarding work experience, I had to be there. So I did all that work experience, and then stupidly I forgot to even contact my local club, which is Bristol City, hence the accent, and that's who I support. So I contacted them with my CV, glamorized it a little bit, made myself sound.
You mean bullshitted on your CV a bit,
I don't
like
know
everyone does. Glamorized. Yeah, glamorized. What?
Yeah, so I sent it over. This is the work I've done with Sky, ITV, etc. And funny enough, they had a job going at the time. I got invited in and then had the interview there. But literally a week before I got that job, I was helping Integral out with their social media, just pushing out when the clients did well and doing that sort of stuff. So I continued doing that whilst at Bristol. Whether I was meant to or not, I'm not sure, but probably not. So I did that, and then June 22, I was in London for a concert, and Gary, one of the founders, along with Ray, he said, "Look, let's catch up. How are you getting on?" So we went for some lunch, had a catch up, and he just said, "Look, we want to be investing more in the women's game. Would you want to be a part of it?" My eyes must have lit up. I think he knew the answer straight away. But I did go back to Bristol just to speak to the players. I had a good relationship with them and kind of get an insight on what their agents do, because I was very new to it. I was a bit naive around it. So I just asked what they do, what they don't do. And from there, I was like, look, this is a bit of me. I think I can do this. So I accepted the job. And then 2 months later, England won the Euros. So it wasn't a bad timing. And then
good timing for it. So you played it a bit cool with the founders, did you? Did you negotiate on your deal? Or was it just get me in quickly and just as quickly as
No, you've always got to negotiate. That's from day one. You've always got to negotiate.
Great stuff. So when did you pass the exam?
So it was, oh gosh, that's a PTSD of that exam. September 23 it was, I believe.
23, right, okay. I just got a message from one of the guys. We did some exam prep.
Results are out today, aren't they?
Pardon?
The results are out today.
The results are out, yeah. With one of the guys that was on our course. I think we had about 40. We're going to get. 40, yeah. We usually get very high pass rates, blowing our own trumpets. But yeah, congratulations to Nathan, who's on the call. He's in Australia, so I don't know what time it is there, but he passed and he's got the certificate to prove it. He's got to pay his money now, but that's the only thing. Look, Freya, you obviously you're young looking. I know what age you are. You're one of the youngest agents I know. just tell us about the advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, you've got a bit of a club experience as well behind you.
Sure. Yeah, so I think I'm one of the youngest agents. It does come with positives and negatives, I'm sure. The positives being for me, I'm similar in age to the clients. There's that trust there. We have that friendship. Obviously, you've got to have the professionalism when it comes to clubs and negotiating, but to have that relationship with the clients, I think is important, and that's how we secure clients, to have that trust. So yeah, I'm eager. As I said, with the whole work experience thing a few years back, I want to be very good at what I do. I'm passionate around that, so I think that helps. I guess the negatives would be you might get underestimated or overlooked, but I take that as a positive. That's fine. Underestimate me. I love that. But yeah, I guess it does come with a bit of both, really.
And hey, when you're getting started, you know, you've got to put the hours in, you've got to put the hard work in. You know, you're coming up to Newcastle, you're going here, there, and everywhere to support your players. You know, is that easier when you're younger?
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. I've got nothing keeping me in Bristol at the minute. So yeah, I am here, there, and everywhere. I'm sure as you get older and family, kids, etc., it probably makes it a lot more difficult. You got to choose a football game over your kids. I'm not too sure I can do that. But at the moment, yeah, I've got nothing kind of pulling me back. And for me, like I said, I've got the drive to do well, so it helps.
Yeah, and you're focusing on the women players, and
Yep.
I'm finding the nuances between, you know, it's the same game, same pitch, same ball, different personalities, different traits, emotional intelligence. You know, just talk us through some of the differences between a woman professional player and a men's professional player.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's stereotypical, but I think we said when we met, it's if you're a woman, you're probably wanting your agent to be there more, speak to you more. Look, there's going to be men in the game that want their agent at majority of games as well. But I think for a female, that sense of giving a shit, if I'm honest, caring about what they're doing. All right, they've just lost or they're injured. You're not just there for the highs, you are there for the lows as well. I think that's important in the female game. I'm sure it is with the male players as well, but I think for me that's what I identify when I'm looking to bring clients on board. I'm like, I will be there for the highs and the lows. Hopefully we don't have the same amount of lows as we do highs, but if that is the case, I'll be there no matter
Yeah.
what.
And so Freya, what are you feeling are you know, from an agent's perspective, what are the major issues that are sort of affecting professional women players? You know, is it salary? Is it, you know, training? What is it? What are the major issues out there?
Yeah, I think it was touched on earlier by Jen. I think it's the sustainability and the also the ACL injuries. There is that
Mm.
worry, and I know like a few of my clients openly admit that is always at the back of their mind in a game because it seems to be like a weekly occurrence. We're hearing a new ACL injury. And
Yeah.
then the sustainability. I think it's great that the salaries are going up, and we are seeing that, and it is good for all. But what I would say is we wouldn't want to go backwards. We wouldn't want the salaries to increase, and then in 2 years' time we're going backwards. I know there's always talk about new league format, and I think Jen said
Mm.
earlier with the championship, there's not many games at all now. Being 11 teams, you've got one team each week missing out and not playing. So that I'm no physio, no doctor, but that can't help as well.
Yeah.
With game time and minutes and things like that, really.
I sort of feel, you know, and I'm still an outsider looking in, even though, you know, I have a client in the women's game. I still feel the league should be bigger, shouldn't they? Could they have not have just promoted 3 teams out of the third level into the championship? What do you think?
Yeah, see that was that's a very debatable topic, and I'm one to do that. I'd like to expand the leagues and you get a few more games, like we're saying, the championship this year that they're not
Yeah,
playing many. So yeah, I did look at it and I thought with Reading dropping out, we should be able to put a team in there and make sure it's a full league. But I'm sure
yeah,
there's ins and outs around that. It's not as easy as doing that. But for me, it would be expand the leagues, make it more sustainable,
yeah.
put more money into the top league, but it also needs to filter down.
And Dan Plumley spoke about transfer fees in the women's game, and those have been growing. Is that a trend that's going to continue, or do you think that's been a initial grab of some of the better players and some of the best foreign players as well?
Yeah, no, I think it will. I think it will as the game progresses.
Mm.
But like I say, it's just got to be sustainable in that, because we are seeing progression since they won the Euros back in 22, and then obviously at the final of the World Cup, and we're seeing these. I think on the slide earlier saying that someone's expecting a record £1 million fee, and I think that is probably, we are close to that.
Who's that going to be, Freya? Who's it going to be?
Hopefully one of my clients.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, no, great. Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, but no, look, I think we are definitely seeing progress, and it's good to see it, and I think that will come. Whether or not January's don't tend to be as busy as the summer.
Yeah.
But I can see that there's probably going to be a record fee sometime soon.
You know, I'm feeling like it for the championship particularly. You know, is it 12 or 11 games they've done already in the league? You know,
Yeah.
the past halfway already. By the time it comes to the transfer window in January, most of the games are going to be played, aren't they? So the January transfer window in the championship in the women's game is going to have a limited impact.
Yeah, you're not wrong, or you could look at it the other way. It could make a really big impact in terms of 8 games left and that player changes things or doesn't change things. But I do get what you're saying. It's with after the window's shut and it is probably about 7 or 8 games left, it feels a bit like, is that worth what we're spending? Because ultimately we can do it in the summer for cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. And look, you'd be looking at the top of the pitch, or you'd be looking at positions where you think you're weak or injuries have cost you. So yeah, I totally take your point. Just from my perspective, an agent's perspective, have wages are growing up steadily, transfer fees are going up steadily. What about contract length? What does that look like in the women's game? You know, we find the men's game, the Premier League obviously leads in the contract length, and it goes down, in terms of player values, goes down through the pyramid. Is that what's happening in the women's game?
So when I first become an agent, when I joined, I was probably quite naive, by the way. When I first become an agent, I didn't think there would be many in the women's game. I thought I'd sweep up and have all the lionesses. That's not the case. So yeah, I guess when I first started, it was literally 1 year contracts. Some were on 2, but mainly 1 year, especially in the championship. Now we are seeing longer contracts. Newcastle, one of our clients, just signed a 3-year contract there, so that's the first that they've done at the club, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that, and it's good for the sport and good for the players, if I'm honest, knowing that security.
I mean, it's stability as well, isn't it, for players? You know, it's not so much a transient workforce where you're coming for, well, football is a transient workforce, let's be frank, but you know you're coming for a decent amount of time and you can establish yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the young players, Freya? We're probably off script here, but I just thought I'd ask you, what about the really young players? You know, what's the academy setup like? What's below the first teams in the WSL? What's below the first teams in the championship? And the clubs further down who are well structured.
Yeah, see, I think so. Obviously, they've got the PGA system of each club having a 21s. Going back to kind of what I said earlier, that's a worry now with the transfers in the WSL. We're seeing the WSL, that, like you touched on earlier, players from Norway, players from Sweden, which is great. However, now it's making that pathway a little bit more difficult. You're seeing English WSL players come down to the Championship, which is great. It's making these leagues bigger and better. However, you're now not seeing the pathway, I don't think, or it is making it harder. There's obviously some that are breaking through that are top and good enough, but it is a worry to me that where are we seeing these players get through? It is being harder to get pros at their club that they've been at for 10 years.
Yeah, and look, it's no surprise, Newcastle turned professional summer 2003 for that season, and the standard of play, the standard of the players, the physicality, the technique, it goes up. It's not rocket science, is it? What probably needs to happen is more of the women's teams, more of the academies need to have more time on the coaching, strength and conditioning, whatever it is, whatever the need, to really make that product as good as it can be. Is there any other things that you think the women's game needs just to improve the product for the spectators?
Yeah, I guess it's the backing. It always helps. Obviously, Shawkan's doing a great job at London City, but it always helps with the men's side's backing. And I think you were saying it earlier with the whole not playing the same day as the men's. People then ultimately see bigger attendances, which bring more money, etc. And I think you see it with the weekend when the men's team are on international break, you'll see more fans, and that brings more money into and look, if you go to a game and you're a fan and it's a good game, good atmosphere, you'll go again, you'll be a returning customer, and it's those occasions which we need to kind of lean on. But I do think as well, I think it was someone was saying earlier about the relationship with players and fans and having that personality. It's a lot more in the female game, like commercially. The fans attach themselves to players and their personalities more so than, oh, they're a very good left back or whatever it may be, or they really Gucci, oh, so do I, or whatever it may be. That's what I think the women's game's thriving off, the fact that these players have got their own personalities away from football, because you're then bringing in fans from fashion, fans from this, fans from that, not just pure football fans.
Yeah, and like we were together at St James's Park, and what a fantastic cathedral to play your football in. There was 12,000 there this time. I know they've had 25,000. They're going to be, at St James's again for the Sunderland game, which is going to be a cracker. But do you think every sort of championship and WSL team should be playing on the men's first team pitch?
Yeah, look, if it works with scheduling, like we've seen the issues that Arsenal have had recently with their Champions League fixture, if it works, then yes. What I will say as well, if we're not there with numbers, I disagree. If you're not gonna not fill the stadium, because that's very ambitious straight away, but if you're gonna sit in a big 30,000 stadium with 3,000 fans, you might as well play somewhere where the fans feel like they're on top of you, because that's your advantage as a home side. But yeah, look, in a few years, if everyone's playing at the main stadium, then yeah, I'm all for it.
And just before we sort of wrap up, I think there's a few questions, isn't there, Ryan?
There's a couple of
There's a couple of questions. Have you been down to London City Lionesses?
Not this season, actually. No, I haven't.
Have you been before though? Yeah.
Yeah, but that was when they were at their old place. But yeah, look, what they're doing is very good, and to be fair, I think it's pushing other teams to invest more as well. So that's a positive impact to the whole league, and I think they're probably spending January, which will lead to other teams wanting to compete with that.
Yeah, and two final things. Will you be busy in January, do you think? You'll be quite busy?
You know what? I always sit there before a window and go, oh yeah, there's a few things, 5, 6. Oh yeah, no, I'm not. And then it gets to the window. Yeah, the answer is yes. You will be busy.
And lastly, from me, your wardrobe looks very tidy in the background. Is that being done especially for today's
No, it's a little bit of OCD color coding. That's what it is.
I love it. I love it.
Probably organised, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to have Mark Wilson on later, who's the technical director of Angel City. We'd all love to go and we'll do a visit. We'll do a collective visit over there to see how they're doing things. So make sure you do stick around for that, Freya. But yeah,
Tony,
Ryan said.
Is that you saying you're getting me a flight out there, is it?
No, I'm not paying for the flight, but I don't think Ryanair goes to Los Angeles. So there's a couple of questions Ryan's got.
Jen O'Neill just made it's more of a sort of comment really on what you were saying in terms of whilst expansion is ongoing, there is this sort of multi-tier reality that the women's game is in, where you've got sort of Forest or Burnley that are investing, and then you've got other tier 3 and 4 clubs that are purely like volunteer-led clubs. And do you see that, Freya, with the work that you're doing, in the sense of you've got this sort of transition out of almost grassroots at times into professional elements, and you've got these kind of two worlds living in one, especially at sort of tier 3 and 4?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, as an agent, I think it's quite a frustrating one, because you see the good work the likes of Forest, Burnley, Ipswich are doing, and you're thinking they should and could be in the higher league, investing what they want to. They're just waiting. They're sat there waiting for that promotion to come so they can put money in. It was the same with Newcastle last year, and like Tony said, they said, look, we're going full time. They were always going to win that league, going full time. I've seen it with Forest this season. They're in a good position now, and yeah, it's one of those where it's actually frustrating, because you're like, these could be, they're ready to, they want to, and then there's other teams in the Championship that aren't willing to do that. So it's a bit of a frustration in my eyes.
And just another one, Freya. We talked about Arsenal. Who would be, and don't say Newcastle, who would be the other sort of flagship club who's doing it really well in the women's game?
Yeah, I guess you've got to say London City.
City, yeah.
In terms of what they're trying to do investment wise, I think they're trying to grow their fan bases as well. Lower down, I look at someone like Forest, I look at Bournemouth, Ipswich. I quite enjoy working with these clubs because I see the future for them. So working with them, and I think, like I said, when they get to the level they wanna invest properly.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
A couple of other questions here. Anonymous, what can you do to best represent your clients in situations where the club have set a really low salary line for their women's team?
Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Good answer. Yeah, happy with that.
I guess what can you do in that situation? Your hands sometimes can be tied. If that's what they've set, then you've got. I always say my job is to provide the options for the player. I'll advise where I think they should go. Is mainly down to game time, in my opinion. They might pick a team that's more money. They might pick a team where they agree with me on game time. So to wriggle out of that question, it's always down to the player. I will do my best to get the best deals on the table, and then ultimately they pick what's best for them.
One thing that I've been quite critical of sort of domestic players, especially young domestic players, men's players over the years, is we've got a real like island mentality in this country where it might be a great opportunity in Scandinavia or somewhere in Central Europe, but they don't really want to go because they go to the Nans on a Sunday and they don't really want to leave the girlfriend at home or whatever,
or boyfriend
or whatever. What do you find the sort of temperature is within the women's game? As are they? Do you feel like they're really open to going to play overseas?
You know what it is in the women's game? I think it's a bigger deal because it's not money based. It is your life, and not like what we were saying earlier with length of contracts. It's like back in the day, they were moving halfway across the country for 1 year, and it's like there might not be another year there, but you're moving your whole belongings, your whole life somewhere 4 hours away from home. So it is they have got to sit there and think a bit more, and that's why when I'm speaking to clubs about moves, I'm like, look, give them a little bit of time because it's not like, oh, I can just jet off here and get paid $500,000 a week and easy decision made. It's okay, I can stay here, or for an extra bit of money, which isn't a lot, I can move here. And it's more of a decision around life than football, if I'm honest.
Yeah. No, that's a good question.
Listen, Freya, thank you so much for that. That's
been there is one more because it's a good question.
Oh, it's come in.
It's a good question from Joe. And the question is, Joe Harvey asks, is the women's game as reliant on the servers of WhatsApp running smoothly as the men game?
Great question, Joe. Great question.
Very good question. I've been on this call now since the start, and I'll open my WhatsApp and have a little scroll. That's what.
That's a yes.
That's a yes.
Thanks for that, Joe's at Barrow. Thanks for that, Joe. Brilliant. But Freya, honestly, brilliant to talk to you. Give me a ring next. Oh no, send me a WhatsApp message next time you come out to Newcastle. And what I promise to do, I'll start teaching you the Geordie words. Start with canny.
Can he do it? Can he do it?
Can he? No, you're using it in the wrong way, but yeah. But listen, thanks so much for that, Freya. Thanks so much,
guys. Thank you. Bye bye.
Stick around for Mark later on.
See you later.
See you now. Cheers.
Brilliant. Excellent. Canny equals good. Well done, Mark.
That's the Geordie. Yeah, that's extra for the Geordie. I think we'd put the Geordie subtitles on, couldn't we? For the next
AI could probably.
AI could probably do that. Not my technology skills.
No.
Couldn't do that.
Right. Let's move on. Tony. And we're gonna invite Chris Platts on.
Yeah. So Chris. Let's get Chris on. So Chris didn't realize this, but I was on a scout. Oh, hang on. You've got
Freya's half back. 1 sec. I can just
change. Yeah, that's it. That's the perfect. Hiya, Chris. How are you?
Hiya, folks. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, looking good, mate. Looking good. Are you at home?
Thank you. I am. I'm in the office.
I was just saying I'm going to big up the Football Collective.
Let's do it.
Chris, you didn't realise I was on a scouting mission, did you? I was
No.
scouting. I was scouting for speaking talent, but you just innocently bumped into me when you didn't realise my ulterior motives. So you presented at the Football Collective, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting stuff for our audience. And similarly to Dan, you're an academic. Where was your last lecturing academic gig?
It was with Dr. Dan Plumley at Sheffield Hallam University. Yeah, so I left in February, but yeah, I'm good friends with Dan.
And he's a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. Who are you supporting?
And I'm also a Sheffield Wednesday supporter.
Ah, so it's like going to match together.
Yeah,
The recruitment within the academic world is being unravelled.
I was hoping it was going to be a bit of a rivalry. I was trying to set up a bit of a rivalry. So you tell us what you're going to present to we've got a lot of football people on here. It's great, and what I'm trying to encourage is this crossover between the football industry and the academic, and not crossover. It's almost like linking together and sharing useful information, work, research, conversations, just broadening out the knowledge sort of sharing.
I think you've hit on something that academics like as well, because that synergy between academia and the real world, so to speak, is important for most academics I speak to. The worst thing is doing research and then not being able to get it into the hands of people for whom it can make a difference. And essentially, that's the snapshot I'm going to try and give today of 10 years of research, of career trajectories, tracing players' careers and how we can begin to predict their future and start to work with them to understand what the future might be like before they arrive there and things unravel quickly. Or, when I say unravel quickly, that could be going to the Premier League, but having a lot of challenges in that direction as well. So that's what I'm going to present.
Yeah. So do you want to share your screen, Chris? Have you got some slides? Or
just whilst Chris is doing that, I think it's a really important point. I mean, frustratingly, I wasn't able to make it last week, but where I think from a sort of club perspective, football internally has not been great at adopting research, and I think it's something that we need to do much better.
And the other good thing I like about having the guys from obviously the university sector on is they know how to use technology.
They have great backgrounds. Great backgrounds. Good use of tech.
So look, just take us through it, please, Chris. And
On that note, has that worked? Can you see the slide?
Yes,
okay, we're all right. So just a quick outline. I left academia in February to set up my own coaching business, and it's career coaching, and it's founded on some of the data that I'm going to give today. It's 15 years worth of research. Please feel free to ask questions. Get in touch. I've got my contact details at the end as well. So this is, of course, because I was in a university, publicly funded research. My take on that is it's your work as well. So the best I can disseminate this, the better for everyone as far as I can see. So many of you will have come across this book. And this is really where this piece of data that I'm going to present to you today starts. There's a famous quote on the back of this, which is, of the 1.5 million players who play organised youth football in England at any one time, okay, only 0.012% will ever make it as a professional. Okay, a success rate, Calvin calls it, of 0.12%. He equals it to being hit by a meteorite on your way home. Now, when you've worked in the world of academia, these sorts of things, and I know why Michael Calvin did it, and I will say, for anybody who knows him, this is a great book. I'm not pulling the book apart, but this sort of statistic is something where when you're in academia, you think, hang on a minute, this something's not adding up right here. And there's a little bit around this of, he's taken every single young player who plays organised youth football, equated it, how many get to the Premier League, and found a statistic, which is similar to me saying, well, I pick up the guitar, but I might not make it to, lead singer of a rock and roll band. That might not be why I'm picking up the guitar. So a little bit sort of unraveled with this. And what I started to do was dig down into it a bit more. We see a lot of this come up at the start of seasons. How many academy players are making appearances. I've put both sides of Manchester there to be balanced on this. It's not unusual at the start of seasons to look out for academy stars who've come through the ranks, who are going to, take the world by storm this sort of season. For me, though, as I'm looking into this, it aligned with something that I'd done working, which is we get a lot of this in policy. It's takeoffs, not landings. It's looking at how many made debuts, but all right, that's fine. But where did it go? The FA, for example, they've just released a 2024-2028 strategy for the women's game. That's great. Are we going to monitor it along? Are we going to review it in 2029? That occurred, and this sort of idea led me to think, well, hold on a minute. I've got a PhD that I've just come to the end of. It's got 303 players in it from 21 academies and centres of excellence, as they were called at the time. They're nicely split across the leagues. Can I trace them over the next however many seasons and actually come up with a more, what we might call, reality congruent analysis of professional footballers' career trajectories?
Chris,
So that's
Chris, can I just stop you there?
Which one?
Reality congruent. Both words I'm not really that familiar with.
You know one of them. You know reality.
Oh yeah, well, people say I'm not in touch with reality, but yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, more in line with reality, to offer a more realistic view of what football players' trajectories are actually like. Yeah, that's me slipping back into the old academic.
Cool. No, that's great. No, that was just for me. Thank you, Chris.
That's fine. I'd rather you pull me up. Yeah. So these are the 4 things that I'm going to try and highlight to you over the next 10 to 15 minutes. How many players from that cohort? Now, it ended up being 299, not 303, because 4 of the players, I couldn't identify them from their participant information sheets. I couldn't read the names from their writing, so I had to get rid of 4. How many from that original study were offered contracts at the age of 18? I wanted to know if there was a relationship between the club the player was a scholar at and their career in football. Of the players who were then given a professional contract at the age of 18, what were their trajectories over the course of their career? What did that longitudinal stuff look like? And then, were there any other characteristics that we feel might be useful for players and understanding their careers? So, first of all and this is a question I get asked a lot, how many make it? And I will just say, making it is a loose term. I know we were talking about this last week, Tony. If you are a scholar and you get a pro for 1 year, did you make it? If you get a pro for 2 years, but you never made an appearance as a professional, did you make it? So it's probably the question I get asked the most. And I have to be a bit like a politician and come back going, well, it depends how you define.
Yeah, it's totally subjective, isn't it, Chris? We've spoke about it before. It's what feels natural to the individual. Like I feel like 50 appearances is
I got a year's
for a club.
I got a year's pro at Leeds United, but I don't feel like I made it. The lads who went on to play first team football made it.
Yeah. Although you've spoke about that year's pro more than the lads that played 300 games.
So you've got to cling on to something.
You got to
cling on to something. Yeah.
Funny that he brought it up last week, actually.
I know he would have.
So yeah, and I think there's an element in there, to be honest, around expectation setting and talking to young lads around what are you wanting to get from the game and talking about that early, and with parents and guardians as well. That's another presentation. So of the 299 players, here's how they remained in football across from ages. So the ages across the bottom and the percentages are up the side. Wow. Playing 56% were still playing in the game at 18, got some form of contract. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it was at the club that they were a scholar. And it's also, the lower down you get, it's harder to find exactly what was in the contract. So I think some of those were potentially of a semi-professional nature, those contracts. But there were 56% who remained in the game with some form of contract. And then over the years, between 18 to 26, you can see it slightly drops off, crosses over at age 21. But it wasn't the drop-off that I thought I was going to find. if I'm honest about that. I thought that drop off was going to be larger. So that took me to the next question, which was, does that division impact on whether they get that pro or not? There were 167 players. That 56% equated to 167 players. Okay, so these were them awarded a contract by their division of origin. And you can see quite significantly here, 80%, I think it's 81% of those in the Premier League. So if you were a scholar at a Premier League academy, at the point of data collection, this was that 80% of those got something within the game, 56% in the Championship, 42% League One, and just under 40% in League Two. So yes, the answer to that one would be, and I get that question a lot. Are you better if I'm in a position where I'm looking for a scholarship, I'm better trying to push higher up? Well, the data would point to that, and I know there's then another story about does your lad feel comfortable and all that element as well. But the data would support that. And then another bit from that was, does it impact on your ability to stay in the game? So we then looked at how many were still in the game. This was 2021 census point by this point. So by 2021, how many were still in the game? There were 119 players still in the game. And again, you can see that those who started in the Premier League and to an extent the Championship were able to hold on to something in the game for longer by the age of 2021. I should say the data collection was from 2012. Okay, so 9 years in by this point.
Yep.
Now on to a second bit of the story, because and it comes back a little bit to the point of making it. There's staying in the game, and then there's where are you playing.
Yeah.
So the second part to this is, what level were the players competing at by the time that they were 26? So we zeroed the data, waited for everybody to get to 18, and then looked at an 8-year period between the ages of 18 and 26. That gave us 125 players to work with. 6% of those 125 were in the Premier League. 11 were in the Championship. 6% were in League One. 7% in League Two. 14% had dropped to the National League because nobody started in the National League. 46% of those were lower. 10% had moved abroad. Okay. Of the 125 that we still had in the game when they were 26 years of age, okay, you can see nearly half of them had dropped below National League. And that led to another little finding around the career trajectories. Between the ages of 18 and 26, that 167, so the 56% that we talked about at the start, the 167 of them, what happened between the ages of 18 and 26? 5% of that group were able to move up the football pyramid. 5% were able to maintain. 58% between the ages of 18 and 26 were moving down the football pyramid. A quarter left the game completely, or weren't of a standard where we could find them. And then 7% of those had moved abroad. So there's an element in this for me around redefining success and going back to the conversations about making it. What do you want from the game? What's the purpose? What is it doing? And continually having that conversation, because elite sport is difficult. And you look at that thinking, wow, 58% were moving down. That can still be successful. And it's really, really difficult to reframe success, I think, when we're in a sport which is, look what's happening to Man City at the moment. It's a really good example of redefining success. The pelters that they're taking for what is generally it's something that Sheffield Wednesday go through about 4 times a season, if I'm honest. But so it's about redefining that for the players themselves, around even those moving down are the tip of the iceberg of how good they are. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was around moves, which we were able to track how many moves players made in the first 5 years of their career. So between the ages of 18 to 23, there's the number 167 again at the bottom of this contract at 18. Okay, you can see how many by the league there. But the important point for me is that bottom line. They amassed 916 moves between 167 players in 5 years. That averaged at over 5 moves per person.
Wow.
In 5 years.
Moving every year.
240 of which were loan deals, between 1 and 2 loan deals. I struggle to find other occupations, and I've researched it, but we're looking really at the army, we're looking at the arts, musicians, actors, where this sort of geographical relocation, social upheaval is being felt at such a young age. Because again, remember, between 18 and 23, that is. And the other point, just before I start wrapping up and concluding on this, is only 2% of the players who got a contract at 18 were at the same club as their scholarship by the time they got to 26. So in those 8 years, most people moved. It tells me that if you're a scholar at a particular club, it's highly unlikely that that is where your career is going to be. So you've got to start preparing, thinking early as a family, as a social support network, and the agent, of course, is in that as well, around how are they prepared for moving geographically. And I was interested in the talk before around moving abroad. The question came up. How prepared are they for that? How comfortable are they in different cultures? And what role do we have as support groups in helping them help themselves in that regard? So unsurprisingly, I think we know this. This is, I would term, precarious work. Okay, it's short-term contracts, it's short-term deals, and then it's movement around the country. And the precarious nature of it has impacts on wider social things in our lives, like relationships, family, whether we have children or not. Those scenarios, we probably already knew that. I think it's important to highlight and to understand that the career trajectories are different from many other professions. Probably one of the starkest examples of this is if you look at the research into young people's careers between the ages of 18 and 23, 24, 25, they are gaining promotions, they are getting more money for the job that they are doing, they're gaining more qualifications, their perception is that they are moving forward. For the majority of these lads, that isn't going to be the feeling that they're getting. It's going to be the opposite. So we've got to think about that. As I've showed, it's characterized by geographical moves, short-term loan moves, and downwards moves. You've got to expect to move from the club of your scholarship. Now, it does appear that the club that you start at has an impact on your career, but there's a big but here, which is the higher that you start, the further that you can fall within those first 5, 6, 7 years. So I try and compare somebody who got a contract, say, at a League One club and then drops 2 divisions to the National League in the next 5 years. They've moved down 2 divisions. How are they feeling compared to somebody who was given a professional contract at a Premier League club and ended up in the National League when they've dropped down 5 divisions over, say, the same 4 or 6 year period? Psychologically, how are they managing that when we know that they will have been working their nuts off, working hard, and they're like, but I don't really know what just happened. That was a whirlwind, and all of a sudden I'm in the National League, and this isn't where I thought I was going to be. I got a pro contract at a Premier League club for 2 years, and look what's just happened. So the higher you start, the further you can fall. I said about contact details. There's a QR code there to the website. Essentially, what I'm at is I publish a blog a week on all the data from the PhD, which was interviews with the players, to this longitudinal data, interviews I do with coaches, interviews I do with welfare officers. I have some guest blogs on there. So if anybody wants to put 500 words about their, what they do, the more the merrier from my perspective. It's about disseminating knowledge, putting it in the hands of parents, young players, and those support networks around them to help them as much as they can. So yeah, hopefully just on time. And
Oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
have some quick-
That was really interesting, Chris, and a few sort of points. I actually thought the percentage that ended up playing abroad was actually higher than what I was expecting. Did you delve into that? Were those players of kind of dual nationality, or did you look at that?
I didn't, and it's a question that's come on over the past. This is sort of the third bit of presentation around the different bits of this data, and I've been asking for people to come back and throw questions at me, and that's one. I think maybe Tony, you even asked me that last week, but it's something that I want to dig into. And now I think there's more data available on the comparative levels of the leagues that they went to versus the ones that are in this country. I was very tentative to start making comparisons when I was putting that Premier League Championship lower and stigmatizing some of the leagues abroad.
Yeah,
Value.
no, it's really interesting. I actually used to have a private football academy, not far from you in Rotherham, actually, Chris.
Okay.
And we'd get all the boys that were released out of all the professional clubs come and be with us. They're all full time. And one of the questions I always used to ask is, who wants to be a professional footballer, and where would you want to play? And it's interesting how domestic British players, they almost give a radius of the clubs that they want to play. Oh,
Right.
Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Mansfield, Forest, Leeds. Well, actually, what if a team in the Vietnamese Premier League came in and offered you a 3-year deal, and actually you were going to be on $100,000 a year? It seems to me that when we think of opportunities in this country, we literally give a border to our opportunities. And I think, like you said, that reframing that argument of what is success is really interesting. I part run and part own a non-league side, and the lads there are earning multiple hundreds of pounds a week for a training session in a game, couple of training sessions a game. For me, that's massive success.
Yeah, Chris, obviously that's my second viewing of that, and I appreciate it. I think it's really useful for our audience. There's a couple of things that I'm thinking. One, are players and parents and support people really aware of this? Because I think there's a lot of new stuff in there to me. I know what the landscape looks like, but to have it seen in stats, figures that are, not undisputable, but solid research figures, it really does bring it home. I wonder whether parents are aware and players are aware of what they're getting themselves into. And the other thing that really does strike me is kids are joining clubs at 7 and 8, 6, 7 and 8, and their trajectories. That's another. Well, you've got another 20-year study there to get them to go to 26 or whatever. So just talk to us about those two things.
Yeah, sorry, just writing down my thoughts before I forget them. Are parents and players aware? I don't think they are, and the reason I don't think they are is because it's a little bit why I started with the quote from Calvin. I think it's just too easy to throw out there. Oh, we know 99% don't make it. I mean, again, what does make it mean? What we've thrown that around for ages, and parents are kind of like, we know that bit. I mean, I watched the first episode of Chasing the Dream last night on the Sky Sports documentary, which I reached out to and tried, and was like, come on, let me have some of this data, please. But first episode of that introduction, we know the percentages of the numbers that don't make it, and I'm thinking, no, we don't.
No, we don't.
It's common parlance. It's just hearsay.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you mentioned, the National League was mentioned and lower, and if you can be a full-time professional in the National League, you can have a really good career. You might not go into the Football League, but you can spend 10 years there. In my mind, you're a professional footballer. You've made it. Even lower down, there's professional footballers or people. I was at a National League North game where one of the strikers is playing very good money, but he's got a really good job as well.
Yep.
Has he made it? Well, I would say so. He's doing all right for himself.
Yeah. It's how do you value those experiences as well? You know, it's not if you're earning £500 a week, you've not made it. If you're earning £1,000 a week, you have made it. Yeah.
Yeah, and reframing that from, I find the point at when you ask that question is really it is really interesting. So in the PhD, if you were to ask the players who were at a Premier Academy in the Premier League, would you take a contract in League Two? When they were 16, 17, 18, yes, take that. As soon as they get a pro contract in a Premier League club, even though we probably know it could just be to make up the numbers in the under 21s, then the perception changes.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they then start to come into the into the 21s. After a year, we think it's best you go out on loan.
Yeah.
So, and where are you going to go out on loan? So then they go on loan to somewhere towards the bottom of League One because they're struggling and they're looking for somebody who might be able to help them. And then then it's kind of a different game at that level as well. So then things don't start to work out, and it's like, oh, you didn't make it in, you didn't really make an impact on League One. So now you're coming to the end of your contract. It's probably it's League Two clubs and the National League clubs and lower who are starting to look at you. And this player's suddenly gone out without thinking about this out loud, change the perception of what it means to make it for them. And this is starting to unravel within the course of one or two, potentially two moves. So yeah, there's that element to it. I mean, just quickly, Tony, on the pre-academies, as somebody who's interested in player welfare, that kind of makes my blood run a bit cold, the idea of pre-academies and the younger groups. And the data on that is even harder to pick up because the churn is so quick.
Yeah, that's it. Just a couple of other quick questions before we let you go, Chris. So there's just a comment from let me just get it there from Stephen, which was about some of the training ground guru stats around actually clubs, the percentage of minutes played by actual homegrown players. And you're just making a comment now where you've got Cat 1 clubs like West Ham that actually won the FA Youth Club, but also along the lines of Brentford, Fulham, and my team Wolves, that actually haven't given any actual first team minutes to any of their academy players. Actually, well, I think Wolves have actually given some debuts this season. But is that got to be a consideration for players which club they go to?
So many variables in this. Was it Stephen? Sorry, who asked that question. Yeah, so many variables. I would add into that. What competition are they playing in? I see clubs, they're all over social media as soon as they've got somebody making a first appearance. And then you look at and we know which competitions it's in. It's because they're trying to rotate out some of the first team players. And I'm kind of thinking, you're not helping this player by putting them out there saying, great to see number 911 produced from the academy getting a first team run out, and they've come on for 17 minutes at the end of a Carabao Cup, but whatever it's and so I think there are a lot of variables in there which can mask exactly what's going on in this scenario.
And there's a lot of clubs that love their kind of academy graduate wall. And they'll have it all at the academy, and they'll have more posted up of people that have made a first team appearance. And some of these players might have been on for 30 seconds.
And interestingly, when you go to the clubs and you say, oh, where are they now?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of people on here who knock around clubs. Next time that comes up, I'll just leave this here. Ask them. Just see. Because they will put up, I mean, I've just seen Dortmund do it. Presentation. Look at Jude Bellingham. Here's Jadon Sancho. Here's Erling Haaland. I'm like, that's absolutely fantastic. Well done with that. But what about the other ones? And the answer sooner and out.
And then finally, very quickly, and I kind of stole the thunder on this question a little bit, but Tim asked a question around the 7% that had moved about. I talked about dual nationality, but actually whether or not being bilingual was an advantage for sustaining your career as well. Is that something that you're going to look at?
I'll say yes. I didn't ask that. I mean, there's a bit of a common assumption there, and I wouldn't want to go out and say a club's going to sign somebody if they don't see them as as good on a football pitch, but they're like bilingual. I don't think that would be the case. So in order to say true to my research roots, I didn't look into that, but it's that moving abroad element is a really, really important aspect of this going forward, I think. And just before I do go, if there are any other questions around the data that you want to ask, that somebody asked me the other day about relative age effect, so I'm going to go back and dig into that as well. The more questions that I feel we can ask of this data, it's 10 years worth, and I'm going to keep doing it every year. The more of a useful resource it becomes. I've been among this data a lot, so anybody from industry who wants to ask questions of the data, drop me a message. More than happy to jump online and find out more about it.
Thanks, Chris. Brilliant.
All
really
right.
Appreciate that.
No worries at all. Thanks
Thank you so much.
I'll see you soon.
See ya.
Cheers, Chris. Bye for now. Bye bye.
Brilliant. That was really, really interesting, Tony.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Right. Next up, we're absolutely delighted to have Gregor Reiter with us. We'll just wait for Gregor to come on as a panelist. Here we go.
Hi, Gregor. How we doing? Oh, here we are.
Hi, Ryan. How, Tony? Can you hear me
Gregor.
good?
How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. We're enjoying it. We're working hard here, but as you can see, whereabouts are you in the world?
I'm in our Cologne office today.
Cool. So for the guys on the call, Gregor is a lawyer, a top lawyer. We've collaborated on a number of webinars to do with the football agency business. He's also a member of FIFA's football agent working group. You also work with an agency in Germany, Gregor. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I do work as a lawyer for a lot of, or in the law firm that I work for, we represent a lot of athletes, professional athletes, predominantly football players, not only football players. We do represent agencies from across Germany as well as from across the world. We represent artists, singers, songwriters, actors, like a lot of special individuals.
Give us some names.
Not Ray Winston, is it?
give us a big non-football name.
I can give you one name, because she's on our website. The company, the law firm that I work for, it's not me as a person, but my partner Jörg Fischer. He has been representing Steffi Graf and Andrew Agassi for the past 20 years.
Wow.
Classic.
Yeah.
I love a name drop.
That's a good name drop.
I think you've just surpassed Ray Winston.
Yeah,
a little bit. No, Ray's a good one, but
yeah.
Gregor, in your capacity as one of the guys who you understand the football business, you understand how agents operate. Just give us a brief overview of the FIFA Football Agents working group.
Okay, well, the agent working group was created under the new FIFA agent regulations. It's actually laid down in one of the regulations. I think it's Article 23, but please don't quote me on that. And
there'll be a quiz on this later, Gregor.
This is not the exam.
Okay, fine. Good. I probably wouldn't pass it.
Yeah.
And when the agent regulations, or the FIFA agent regulations, were put into force at the end of 22, early 2023, the agent working group, as part of the regulations, was also created, and all agent groups were invited to name participants to the agent working group, and as were other stakeholders such as the leagues. And FIFPro and ECA, the clubs, and I, along with my colleague Andres Rava from Prague, we were both named by EFA to join the FIFA agent working group, and then in the process, FIFA decided to put us on the group. So it's made up of 18 members. Most of them are agents. It's a overview of the entire world. So there's I think 7 of us are from Europe. The rest is then from either South America, North America, Africa, Australia, or Asia. And there is 3 non-agent affiliated members on it. One of them is Ben Ross from the Premier League, and the other one is Roy Freya, who represents FIFPro, and I forgot his name. Miguel is his first name. He's from Mexico. He's a lawyer from ECA, from the club association. So that's basically.
Do you think it's a well-constituted group and it's very representative?
Well, the process from on the agent side definitely was representative, since all agent associations were invited to name participants. Not all did name participants. But yes, from my perspective, it is a fairly clear cut across the agent world. I mean, I am not working as an agent, but I probably one of the guys on the group that has a little bit less practical understanding of the agent world, but more so understanding of the regulatory world. Keeping in mind that I've been working in this work on the regulatory side since 2007, since EFA was founded. I have pretty much been in every process of every reform, whether it was from FIFA, whether it was with UEFA, with the national associations, or with the European Union, where the agent world and the agent business was discussed. So from the regulatory side, I do have a pretty good understanding of what and how the agent works should or should not be regulated.
Yeah, and am I right in thinking you've had 2 meetings so far? Is it 2 or 3?
3.
3 meetings.
3 meetings. Two in face to face. The first one last year in May in Zurich. The second one last December in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and then one online meeting. And the next one coming up on December 17th is going to be online as well.
Yeah, and was the second meeting? I remember we spoke about it. I think you mentioned, I think it was in the European Football Agents Association meeting or conference. It was quite a robust meeting. Was it the second one or the third one? Quite a robust.
It was the second one. It was the one in Jeddah that the end of last year, which came after 3 extremely relevant decisions from courts across Europe. Of course, the first one coming from the district court in Dortmund in May 2023, one day before the first meeting of the FIFA agent working group. So well done, district court Dortmund, for timing there. Then the second decision was the decision from the arbitration panel in England. And the third one was the decision from the Mercantile Court in Madrid in Spain. All 3 had in common that they basically declared the fee cap that is in the new FIFA agent regulations to be invalid. The German decisions go a little further than the other 2. And again, there was impeccable timing from the appellant court in Düsseldorf, which heard the case from Dortmund in March of this year, but they issued a written pre-decision, if I may say so, 24 hours before the Jeddah meeting, and basically underlining the fact that they would uphold the Dortmund decision. So we went into that meeting in Jeddah with a pretty clear understanding that the FIFA agent regulations could not be enforced in one of Europe's biggest markets. So the question that we asked from the agent side in that meeting was, FIFA, what are you going to do about that? You have a serious problem in Germany. You have an already solved problem in England as far as the fee cap is concerned, and you have an issue in Spain. And when we addressed FIFA with that question, their answer was and you probably don't have an ECJ decision for another 12 to 18 months. So what are you going to do? And the answer was, well, yeah, we're going to wait and see. And that's, I'll say, where the meeting got a little bit rough. Because from our point of view, 2 weeks before transfer window, we were headed into a January transfer window with absolute legal uncertainty. And that was something that that is bad for the business. You know, whether it was the agents, the clubs, or the players, nobody knew who can do what, where, and for what payment. And for us, that was a very, very important factor. So we drew the discussion to that. We basically told FIFA, you cannot sit this one out. You can't. You have to do something. You have to decide something. And they came around in the discussion and asked us, well, what is it that you want us to do? And basically, from the agent side, we said the only thing you can, which was second by the other stakeholders in the meeting, we basically said there's only one thing you can do. You basically you have to suspend the rules for now. It is already pending with the ECJ. The ECJ is the highest court in Europe, and Europe is the biggest market in football. So you have to suspend it until the ECJ has a chance to decide it. So there's certainty within the industry. And after rough discussions and after a long night, I want to say in front of the bar, but there is no bar in the bar sense in Saudi Arabia. So finally, FIFA then on December 30th last year decided to suspend the rules, and I can say that I think that meeting in Jeddah had a very big impact on that decision, making it clear that waiting this one out was not an option.
It was not an option.
No.
You know what strikes me, Gregor, is that the FIFA put a lot of work into creating the FIFA football agent regulations, and then they put a working group together. Was it not the cart before the horse? Why didn't they put the working group together and task them with come up with a decent set of regulations?
Well, I mean, as you may know, FIFA tried to do that. There was this by now infamous meeting of April 2018, where they put 35 agents in one room in Zurich. And basically, I was present at that meeting and basically told them how the new agents regulations were going to look like and how they're going to work. And then there were a few things left to be answered. And FIFA said, well, and this is now the time where we split up in working groups and, kind of like, from high school and sit around the table and discuss it. And that's basically where the agents, or where EFA in the person of Giovanni Branchini said, no, that's not what we're going to do here. You're going to leave the room and we're going to discuss amongst the agents how we're going to react to what you have just presented us with. So, in a way, they did it, but then in a way, they didn't do it. And I agree with you, Tony. It probably would have been smarter from the beginning to basically come to roundtable discussions saying we need to do something. And I think most agents would agree to that something needed to be done or needs to be done. What is it that we can do? What is it that we should do? What is it that we shouldn't do? Instead of rather, coming up with something behind closed doors, then presenting it, and then now discussing it under the pressure of court decisions. Because they really don't have a chance. It's clear it's not going to go through the way FIFA anticipated it, but it should have been done from the beginning. But better late than never. And I really must say, especially after the Jeddah meeting, there are people at FIFA who are listening,
right?
And
well, that's good to
who
hear.
want to get this right.
That's good to hear. Yeah, that is good to hear. And so the third meeting, was that relatively calm waters then, or there's not a lot to discuss?
Well, I have the theory
that's
that
maybe why they did it online.
I was exactly going to say that after the Jeddah meeting, they said, well, let's not get let's not get these agents back in one room where they have the chance to nail us to the wall. Let's do it online, and if things go wrong, we can simply pull the plug and say, oh, it's technical difficulties. No, it actually might be one reason why they did it online rather than in person. The next one on December 17th, unfortunately, is online again. It's fine to do it online, but the group meets twice a year, and I'm of the personal opinion that at least one of those meetings should be in presence. For this year, I granted to FIFA that was the move of the legal department to Miami in the summer. They probably have some other things on their hand, but the meeting in the spring of 2025 should be or must be a meeting in presence.
So you mentioned the European Union, and we've mentioned it already today on another session. Now, obviously, the big leagues, Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga, the French league, Spanish league, they are major players in this international marketplace. So if it's not right in Europe, the rest of the world, it's not right. Yeah, is that how that's how I see it, and certainly England's the biggest single market for football transfers and wages. So really, it's a European and Great Britain problem. When do you anticipate it going to the European Court of Justice?
Well, I mean, it's already pending with the ECJ. Germany produced two rulings in early 2023. One is the famous Dortmund ruling of May 2023, and the other one is a slightly less famous ruling from the District Court of Mainz. And that is the one which is pending with the ECJ, because the District Court of Mainz, in its decision, said, well, there's so many answers that need to be, so many questions that need to be answered in concerning the FIFA football agent regulations that do concern European law. We can't answer that, so we send it with our questions that we have. We send it to the ECJ, and that is what's pending there. And basically, the questions that they have asked, in a nutshell, is whether or not the FIFA football agent regulations are in line with European law and are in line with European competition law, breaking it down to each section, starting from the licensing requirement all the way down to the fee cap.
Yeah, and FIFA and the courts, I suppose you mentioned Spain, England, and Germany, so that's 3-0 to the court rulings, 3-0 against FIFA. Court rulings 3, FIFA 0.
Yeah.
And there's been other court cases, and I'm thinking of Diarra v FIFA, that haven't gone FIFA's way. Is there any real doubt about the outcome of the ECJ? Is there any real doubt that they're going to find in favour of employment law being stronger than FIFA's diktats?
Well, the pending ECJ decision concerning the agent regulation is not going to be a decision on employment law.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference to the Diarra case, because the Diarra case wasn't in parts an employment law case decided, and so it is a bit tricky to draw a conclusion from the Diarra decision to the pending ECJ decision on the agent regulations, because it touches a different field of the European Union law. And employment law has always been more in the focus of the courts, and employees' rights have always been stressed more diligently by the courts than other parts. Agents are not in the field of employment law, but more in the field of freedom of services. Yeah. So I would warn against saying, leaning back and say, okay, with the Diarra decision out, the decision of the FIFA agent regulation case is a foregone conclusion. But given the fact that the ECJ has clearly positioned itself when it comes to market obstructions, when they clearly have said that the Article 17 of the FIFA transfers regulations do violate European justice law because they are intransparent, I think we can take it from that at the very least, the ECJ will have a major problem with the fee caps.
Yeah.
But be aware that one thing I always, when I discuss this with especially among various agents groups, don't expect too much from the court, because the ECJ, just like any other court has done in the past, they will tell us, or they would tell FIFA more so, what they cannot do. They will not tell FIFA or the agents or anybody else what they can do. That's not the job of a court. A court will say these rules they violate EU law, but we will not tell you how to manufacture your regulations so they're in line with EU law. That is something that you have to figure out by yourself. And then when you come up with the new result, you can bring it back to us and we'll tell you again whether you made it or you didn't make it. So yes, so it's very important to keep that in mind. The ECJ decision is one stepping stone towards an agent regulations that is both necessary for the industry and welcomed and accepted by every participant in the industry, including agents, clubs, and national and international football associations.
Yeah, and just finally before we wrap it up, you're a lawyer, and we've got you on to talk about football and FIFA. The Diarra v FIFA case, which we've just mentioned, do you think that will have a major impact on football transfers, Gregor?
That's a very good question. It could. I mean, it's a twofold decision. One deals with competition law, the other deals with freedom of employment law. And I'm not a competition law lawyer, so when I analyzed the decision, I focused on the first part, where it basically says yes, FIFA, or didn't say FIFA cannot cannot penalize the breaking of a contract. FIFA can do that. What needs to be done, it has to be transparent. And that is basically the core problem of Article 17.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, when you look at the variety of the decisions that are there based on Article 17, you have damages from the remaining value of the contract, as it was in Webster, all the way to several million euros, as it was in the Methusalem case from the player who moved from Shakhtar Donetsk to Real San Sebastian one day before the transfer window closed. And that is really what was the ECJ criticized, that you have to come up with a regulation where everybody knows what they're getting themselves into. And at the same time, and that's where I believe, yes, it will have an impact, don't come up with something ridiculous. So don't write in there it's something that is acceptable. So I expect the damages for breaking of a contract will be more transparent, but will be less than they were in the past. So they will go down. There will be more. It will be easier to calculate them. So therefore, from a strategic point of view, I, as a club, may be more inclined to either break a contract or as a player to either break a contract earlier and then ask the club to reimburse me for that, than to pay a 30, 40, 50, $60 million transfer fee. So I expect it to have an impact. What also could be the case is, especially if the value of the remainder of the contract plays a significant role, that clubs will adjust to the strategy that we know from the NFL, which is called backloading, that you will push more money into the back of the contract. So you will pay the player more in year 4 and 5, so that A, he's inclined to stay longer, and B, the damages in case he does break the contract will be higher.
Yeah. And what about a clause in a player's contract that says what happens if, you know, that circumstance is arising? Because I know FIFA are asking for comment on Article 17 of it's the RSTP, isn't it? The regulations on the status and transfer of players, and FIFA are asking for, you know, open consultation. Just send us your thoughts, type of thing, which doesn't seem right to me.
Anybody,
to anyone.
Anyone can. Yeah.
But you know, so I don't know whether that's the right way forward. But you know, I know the European Football Agents Association were talking about putting every sort of clause in the contract and you know, buyout clauses or what happens in this case, so it is clear and transparent.
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree with you, and I think especially you guys in England know that a referendum might not always be the best thing to do.
That's not the first mention we've had.
Sorry.
I'm talking about the Diarra case. It's the first benefit of Brexit.
Sorry, I just had to bring that up.
So you're not going to mention Thomas Tuchel either in this.
Okay, very, very good. I'm very grateful for that. No, what in as far as the process is concerned, FIFA is probably overdoing it a little bit with the transparency, thereby actually including everybody now. And firstly, they exclude everybody. Now they're including everybody. Well, maybe go find a middle way. In as far as looking at it from a contractual side is concerned, you obviously have to differentiate between the two legal systems we have on this world: the common law system that you guys have, and that is common in North America and in Australia, where you tend to write everything into a contract, which makes the contracts bigger, and you have to write everything in there. We, from a civil law perspective, are more abstract thinkers. So we basically will look at the contract and say, okay, the circumstances have changed. So can we read it into the contract that's already there? Do we really have to mention it into the contract? You know, and I think the best way to handle it, and that's probably the road that FIFA is going right now, is adjust Article 17 in a way that it's transparent, that everybody knows what is the price that I have to pay if I breach the contract.
What the penalty is going to be. Listen, Gregor, that's been absolutely fantastic. I've really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for your time. And look, any free advice we can get from lawyers is worth an absolute fortune. And I'm sure I'll see you soon, Gregor.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Wow, Ryan. Yeah.
You know, it's going to be so interesting to see if any players in Europe, Tony, actually test this rule in the next couple of windows. But we're non-stop today. We're non-stop. So we're going from Cologne, and now we are shooting over the Atlantic. And we're going to be hopefully speaking with Mark.
There we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, we've gone from Germany.
Cologne.
Newcastle. Germany, Cologne, and now we're going over to Mark Wilson. It's early morning, I think, in Los Angeles.
I've got my coffee.
Nice.
What time is it, Mark?
It's 7 a.m, so not that early for me, no.
Oh wow, fantastic! And look, it's pretty Baltic up in Newcastle. I was at Gateshead. We were texting last night. I was at Gateshead, Rochdale last night. Not the most glamorous fixture in the world, but me long johns have come out. How's the weather over there?
Well, it's a toasty 70 degrees. Well, it will be a toasty 70 degrees. It's about 60 right now. So as a lad, you know, from Scunthorpe, you know, talking to you from California, I can't complain.
Does this phrase mean anything to you, Mark? Living the dream?
You know what? I feel like it's been kind of that privilege a lot of my adult life. But yeah, living the dream and getting to do what I love every day. Getting to do it, not having to do it is, yeah, he's definitely living the dream, Tony.
I mean, before we get into it, we had a conversation about one of the great games, and I'm not over exaggerating. Just talk us through one of the great games, Doncaster Rovers v Brentford in League One, wasn't it? Talk us through that. It was one of my players was playing as well. Just talk us through what happened in the last 2 minutes, was it? 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, I was on my way out at that point. My legs wouldn't carry me anymore in my playing days, and I was doing a little bit of coaching and support work for Brian Flynn at the time. And final game, I think we were second. We're Bournemouth top at that point.
Brentford. It was
Brentford were top. Bournemouth were third.
Yeah, that's
It went into the last 2 minutes. We gave away a penalty that would have sent Brentford.
That's right.
Up and Bournemouth up, and we would have gone into the playoffs. So as we give that penalty away,
Was it the last minute or something? The last minute of the game.
It was the last minute of the game away at Brentford, and yeah, we're all watching in anticipation. And Billy Painter's come over to the sideline, going, "Well, that's my Marbella trip, off. I'm going to have to cancel it and rebook it. So we're going into the playoffs." I can't remember who took the penalty, but hit the crossbar. There's a little like melee in the box, and then it's kind of half volleyed out. And guess who stood on the halfway line? And all of their players expecting them to score are like way into our half. And Billy stood on the halfway line with a bottle in his hand, throws the bottle as the ball's coming to him, picks it up, and James Coppinger, one of the best players I've ever played with, is sprinting down the field and slips the ball across from Billy Painter and taps the ball. And he took a dodgy first touch as well. He'll probably tell you that. It took him 2 touches from the 6-yard box to put it in. That sent us
Did he get to Marbella though, Mark? That's what I want to know.
He did get to Marbella.
He got to Marbella.
He got it. So it's a happy ending for Billy Painter and the family in Marbella. But what a change in circumstances, and how that, it can go from one end to the other. Let's get into it, Mark. I love that story. I absolutely love that. Tell us about, paint a bit of a picture. What are the steps you took from your playing days to get into the technical director? Obviously, there's lots and lots of people who would love to be they'd love to be, carrying your bag in Los Angeles, never mind being a technical director. But, what are the steps you took?
Well, again, I'll just remind everybody, I'm a lad from Scunthorpe at the end of the day. So I got to live my dream as a player and kick a ball for United a few times and played for 15 years. But then there comes a moment in your life where, for me, it was rediscovering my identity and who I wanted to be. So, 12 years after playing, I find myself in a technical director role. So not immediately after, where I would have felt like I was just underprepared. And you see a lot of transition from players coming straight out of the game, straight into a technical role or even a head coaching role. And they're not really prepared, and through no fault of their own, other than being, fan favorites or primed for this type of job. I feel like I've had the benefit of a 12-year journey that has seen me be a director of coaching in New York City. I built a wearable technology company randomly, asked by a couple of friends to co-found a company 10 years ago that, serves around 40,000 players today in the US and Canada. Been to the Red Bulls as a coach, head of education at the Rapids, and then a business development director at a renowned technology company over here, who were partnered with Hoffenheim on working on their player migration model. And the reality is, I mean, when I get asked this question, it's, well, where does that translate? And when I think about, reporting to investors or raising capital, if I have to step into a boardroom and speak to our owners and, maintain integrity while I'm asking for resources or pushing for something the team needs or our staff needs, it builds a level of comfort and a level of understanding of how to communicate in those environments. The same with, having to build staffs and not think about yourself and develop others, because, the success of your club or your company is dependent on the team of people you bring in and how you recruit and hire. So throughout this entire journey, I've been, where I had knowledge and skill gaps coming out of the game as a player, able to fill those in by taking different pathways and different opportunities and experiences to now land in a role as a technical director a mere 12 years after I finished playing.
And me at 12, you're an overnight success.
Yeah.
12 years after playing. I mean, look, and I've been going through it with a number of my players who've been getting to that 30 something age, and then you know that at some point the phone's going to stop ringing or your body's going to let you down. And when did you start thinking about your second career? Because that's what it is, isn't it? You can't just sort of go, well, I've been a footballer, and back in the old days they open a pub type of thing. When did you start thinking about this second career, Mark?
It's a great follow-up question, and the answer was it was things were falling apart really quickly for me, and identity crisis, trying to figure out. If I'm being honest, I probably played up to a stereotype a lot of my playing career, and was in full rediscovery mode. And I packed my bags and went to New York City, right? So that's an extreme circumstance to figure out what I wanted to do next. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I went back to school at the age of 40 to do a master's degree in sports directorship, and it was one of the best experiences because I left school with nothing, Tony. As you can imagine, in England, this was all I wanted to do. And coming out of Lillishall, I left school with 0 grades. But again, I'll refer to me, I'm just a lad from Scunthorpe. And I've been told you can't, you won't, you'll never.
Yeah.
That just lights the fire under me every single time.
So Scunthorpe Comprehensive, it's like a master's degree. You've said something there that's really resonated with me, because you can be a student at any time, can't you? You don't have to be a student at 19 and do a 3-year degree and then see where you're at. And you doing that, Mark, where did you do your master's at?
I did it through VSI and the UCFP. So it was a wonderful experience. And it was 3 years of being put through the ringer on learning how to write research papers and writing a dissertation. But more importantly, the alumni and the guest speakers that we got access to about using that research and making it practical in day-to-day working life was invaluable. So you're right, you're never too old to learn, and I'm learning every day in this job anyway.
Yeah, and look, this is what we're here for. We want to hear about Angel City. We're many miles away from you guys. We see a few headlines. I've heard people talk about the club. I know that you've got superstar investors, famous people. We've had a bit of name dropping, just to let you in on a secret.
Yeah,
we've had a bit of name drop. We've had Ray Winston,
Steffi Graf,
Andre Agassi. Yeah, and I haven't mentioned Pep Guardiola yet, have I?
That's coming.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
I'm sure you can trump some of that, can't you? In terms
All right, let's have a go. Some of our investors, I've got a list here. Billie Jean King.
Agassi, Billie Jean King. Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're in the right ballpark.
Yeah, we've got Natalie Portman, Jennifer Garner, Eva Longoria, Abby Wambach, Mia Hamm, the World Cup winning team from 90. I can't remember what year that was, but we've got a long list of. There's some more than one.
You won it at Natalie Portman for me.
You had me at Natalie Portman as well. And so just give us an overview of the Angel City then, FC, because it's a women's club, it's a phenomenon. Just give us an overview of it.
Yeah, well, it's I think the highest valued women's sports team in the world now, with the latest $50 million investment we've just received. Our mission is to build a legacy off the field and a dynasty on it. We get 20,000 fans every home game, which is an incredible experience. We're moving into a 55,000 square foot, high performance training facility for next season. But we're in full build mode, and a lot of the focus has been on the brand and developing the brand. And it's incredible that we don't need a 100-year-old badge to become a global or build a global fan base with the way it's been done. And it's been very unique. But now we have to focus on the football. And I'll refer to, I think there's a 10-year study on the NBA that I think they mentioned 100% success correlates to 35% in revenue growth. And I guess that the difference for us would be, instead of finishing 12th next year, we finish 6th and can go into the playoffs and potentially win the whole thing. And that probably equates to about 1.7 million per win. if we're able to do that. $1.7 million per win for us next season, and that could come in a form of, you know, ticket sales, increased merchandise sales, higher local and national TV revenues, and, you know, stronger sponsorship deals just by way of performance on the field. So it's a good indicator for us as a club to really start to laser focus in now on putting the infrastructure in around the performance side and sporting side of the club.
Yeah. And Mark, what does your squad look like? Or is it just a first team squad? Have you got an academy? What does it look like in terms of where the players' backgrounds, where the players from? That, you know, have you paid money for the players in terms of transfer fees? Just paint a picture for us.
Yeah, we're predominant. I mean, we're a first team only. There's no second tier or academy in
Right.
NWSL right now,
Yeah.
which means most of the players are coming out of the college draft or now in a what's become a global market very quickly. The influx of foreign players into the NWSL is rapidly rising. Your Barbara Banders, Temwa Chewingas, Bia Zanaratos, you know, we're going from, you know, last year having a handful of really impactful foreign players to now a significant key number of foreign influential players that are transforming the league yet again. Because I think when you look at I don't know whether you'll be familiar with the ECNL, it's the Elite Clubs National League. It's that probably one of the highest levels of youth girls play in the world. And a lot of US women's national team players and even players in the NWSL have all come through this pathway. And it's the traditional, well, less traditional worldwide pay to play model that supports the quality within that league. So in terms of the base of the pyramid, it's strong, but it's not connected to the clubs at the moment.
And have you gone? Is there any British players playing? Any players back from wherever your contacts are in your network in this country?
Yeah, so I stole one from United, my beloved United. Katie Zell is the epitome of you know, one, a United player, but two, you know, a mentality of what it takes to win. And we're recruiting talent for sure, but that'll never be enough. And we need to bring in players that understand what it takes from the second you walk into our building, from preparation to what you eat, to pre-training workout, to post-recovery workout, to rest and recovery. You know, this league's moving forward very, very quickly in terms of performance, but we need players in the building that understand that every second and every minute spent in our building is just preparation for high performance and development as well, of course. And Zell certainly brought that into our club second half of the season.
And in terms of the brand, I don't like to say brand when I'm talking about a football club, but are the players encouraged to reach out and to grow the followers and all that type of thing?
I mean, look, we're seeing it across the world and men's and women's football, right? Brand is revenue, and revenue in this capitalist system we operate in makes the world go round. So I understand that, you know, with a more contemporary approach to generating revenue around brands and around individual players and around the club itself, I get that. And I also support it. I just think it's an evolution of the game. But I'm also, there's a little bit of me inside that's a little bit more traditional, that always believes, and this always should be the case, that football comes first. And managing that balance in an emerging market like the NWSL and women's football, it's hard to not see players get carried away after the struggle for so long in getting to a point now where we can see a little bit of parity on the horizon, and it's well deserved. So we've got to find a balanced argument and debate when it comes to this discussion around women's football.
Well, I mean, that is such a great answer, Mark, and it sort of strikes me. A politician, is that part of the technical director's role? Is that fair to say, or is that am I clutching a little bit?
I think when you're looking at again, when you're looking at innovation and when you're looking at emerging markets, and especially we can see the challenges that women's football's faced, you have to have that lens on, right? You have to be aware of all of the circumstances that have preceded wherever your entry point is into this market. and then fully understand your role in what you're trying to do to help grow the game and grow the sport across the world from also a woman's perspective, which is hard for somebody like myself, right? It can't possibly understand what female soccer players, women soccer players have had to endure. So it's important that I understand the history and then understand where we need to go to support that.
You know, I'm sort of totally with you on that, and we had a little bit of a feeling of that perspective coming through the day, haven't we? That you know, it's very nuanced. The players are it's the same game but different. You know, I've just taken on a client who's Newcastle United's head coach, and I'm getting used to the differences and the similarities of the women's game and the participants in it as well. So.
It's just whether or not it can sustain those differences. I was talking a little bit earlier about some of the pressure the Man United coach had come under from the fans, which is something I'd not seen in the women's game before. That kind of, you know, that sort of ferocity towards a coach. It's always been a bit more cooperative. So it'd be a question mark over whether that can be sustained. But Mark, it'd be interesting to get your perceptions on where you see the WSL versus the league that you're operating in. And you know, I asked previously on in the day about whether or not, you know, you guys in the States are a bit concerned about the WSL. Maybe it's becoming an ever stronger product. You know, draw on the resources that you want to get.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different in that we're single entity ownership. So the NWSL owns all of the teams in contrast to the WSL. But, you know, I think this is the most fiercely contested league in the world from top to bottom. So, you know, you're not going to find Houston, who finished bottom, selling their best player to Orlando, who won the whole thing this year and won the double. It's okay if we've got an opportunity to go and scout and recruit and build and win the thing next year. That it's not like Sheffield United selling to Man United because they've got a development pipeline. That doesn't happen in our league. You know, when you think about a Trinity Rodman, she's not leaving Washington Spirit to go anywhere else. They're only going to build around their best players, never in fear of really losing them, which maintains a real strong balance within the league. The WSL is a powerhouse league. There's no question about it. Definitely the top, you know, 4 to 6 teams. And obviously with Michelle Kang and investment into London City, she's fierce as well. And no doubt they're going to become a powerhouse and do well once they get promoted. I think that's a matter of time. But if you look at the Olympic final as an example, 60% of the players on the field were in the NWSL. It wasn't European teams competing to win the Olympics. You know, so when I look at overall quality, there's just a difference in league, and we have to operate under a salary cap, which makes recruitment a lot more strategic, I guess, operating under different conditions. But you're still not far off seeing a player making $1 million a year in this league. We're almost there now in base compensation, and we've seen Oshawa and Kundananji come in for $750,000, $850,000 transfer fees. So we are in an emerging market, and it's moving very, very fast.
And is it still open? You know, I remember the figures in the MLS. All the players, everyone knows everyone's salary. Is that the case in your league as well?
Yeah, it can be a pro and a con, right, when you think about negotiating, but you've always got to find the levers to pull on when you're working with players and players' agents, but you also want to make sure players are getting their true value. So actually seeing the salaries can help us. We have an internal measure in terms of salary banding connected to performance metrics. So we're looking for high intrinsic value, low market value players, obviously. But we allowing us to see those salaries gives us a better chance of having a higher hit rate in the market. Certainly our own anyway.
That whole model, you referred to obviously the London City side of not being naturally attached to that 100-year badge as you described. But what are the pros and cons of that? And again, in the teams that have existed and continue to exist in England without that badge, I still have, you know, hopefully they can sustain it. But you always think like, oh, it's going to be hard to sustain it. So, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you've got more room for innovation when you're a brand new club. So you can collaborate more. You're not as insular in this is our brand. We've been around for 130 years, and this is how we do things. And you become very insular because it's highly competitive. When you think about our ability to partner with other entities across the world to grow a global fan base very quickly, that's ultimately what's being done. And we are in, I guess we are in Hollywood here, so the fact or the strategy around using individual brands to grow the actual soccer brand has been very unique and very clever, because ultimately more and more now, and again in contemporary times, fans are following players, following individuals. So if Ronaldo moves from Man United to Madrid, guess where 20 million people are going? Where are their eyes going? So we're coming into a different time in the market. So yes, we don't have that badge behind us. That can bring stability. It brings infrastructure. It brings, a solid line of investment. Whereas if as a startup, you're having to go out and find that. But I do like the innovative side of trying to build something new.
Yeah, and I guess in time you become that, don't you? You start to get second generation, third generation fans, and you become that 100-year badge. Okay, is that's the plan? So, I mean, it's a really interesting time, I think, for the whole of American soccer. Obviously Emma Hayes is national women's team coach. You've got Pochettino as the men's coach. There's quite a few Brits like yourself operating in the game, in the MLS, in the USL, right throughout that. How does kind of America's soccer, both on the men's and the women's side, kind of see itself as because there's so much foreign involvement? Do you think it's found its feet, its identity yet?
It has found its identity, but you're also competing with the NBA, the NFL, MLB, and NHL, right? You've got a big sports, but then you've got 375 million people in this country, so the market's huge.
Yeah.
So when I think about how can I put this? So you've got 2 Premier League teams that we have higher attendances than, 9 MLS teams, and probably 11 championship teams on the men's side that we get bigger attendances. I mean, how long before you're a marketing team or you're a brand or you're a sponsor or TV are going to start to look at those numbers and go, actually, this is just about revenue dollars and pitching products, which is still going on, which has gone on in the men's side for many years. How long before they start to look at the women's game and see it as a viable market for that money to flood in? I think it's a matter of time. In terms of identity, we're in the we are in the entertainment capital of the world in LA here, right? So it's different in Louisville, it's different in Kansas City. Again, it's different going over to Gotham in New Jersey, New York. But fans come to sports events in the US to be entertained. Cultural is a different mentality versus go to the pub, walk to the game, and sing your heart out and watch the football. It's 2 different cultures. So when I look at them as 2 completely different identities, not trying to be the same, but trying to be the very, very best in their own markets. And I think that's an open-minded way to look at it.
Yeah. Do you get stick when you go away? Do people give you, oh, here comes Hollywood and stuff like that? Do you get that? Do you get that?
No, I mean, I had enough of that as a player, getting booed off as many times I've been cheered off.
That's it.
Even by home fans at times. So, I do miss that element of the away fans because, wherever I've played, the away fans that are the diehards, they bring something very unique and very special to the game. So I do miss that over here. And it's the same across all sports. But we're talking about a country the size of a continent. Florida's bigger than England, and we've got 49 more states. So there's we could do a whole other, hour on just travel in the US and how that impacts sports and fans and teams. It's just a different environment.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating. I just wanted to pick up just on a couple of personal bits just before we kind of let you go. Scunthorpe have obviously had a real tough time. Do you keep an eye on them? Obviously, they're doing all right this season.
I do. I mean, I went and played for the rival in terms of going to Doncaster, and that felt like home for a while. So I always got a bit going out in the town anyway. but I do follow my hometown. And they've had a rough ride going. I mean, Championship. They were in there, you know, bouncing between League One and the Championship. So to see the decline is sad because
Yes.
there is a good core fan base there, and it's nice to see them having a better season. And wish nothing but good luck and the best to the club.
But really, you know, it's the kind of inverse to the place where you are now. You know, Scunthorpe, the place itself, has kind of had a decline with the club, and it's a shame. And just one final point before we let you go. Obviously, you mentioned there that you were at Lilleshall, as well. I wanted. I played with a couple of lads that were there. I played with a lad at Walsall called Stephen Cook, who was just one of the best player I'd ever played with. He ended up playing in the Premier League for Villa. He had half a dozen games there. But for me, the relinquish of what we had at Lilleshall was a real kind of sad backwards step. What was your experience like, and do you agree with that we should let it go?
I got to live there for 2 years, and you know, Michael Owen and Wes Brown were my juniors, John Curtis and Mark Gower and Jody Morris players. It was incredible. You were basically the England team for 2 years. You were training to be a pro from 14 to 16. So when I landed at Man United and the gaffer, you know, told me, yeah, you've done well. You've played in front of 60,000 people in Berlin and stuff like that. You're now at the bottom of the ladder. I wasn't fazed by that. He was telling me because he was trying to keep my feet on the ground. But that 2 years of being at Lilleshall gave me every bit of resilience and fight and grit required to start at the bottom of the ladder at United at 16 and get into the first team training environment by the time I was 18. So it was an incredible environment. I think it was a miss to not continue it in some way, shape or form. And I've got nothing but incredible memories. And it was the catalyst for my 15-year playing career.
And thank you so much, Matt. I mean, we could talk all afternoon. Thank you for your time. Just one last question from me. Where do you go on your holidays?
I mean,
Just gonna thought.
back to Scunny to see mum and dad, just in case they're on.
Thank you so much, Mark. Brilliant. I really appreciate that. And enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's going to warm up for you. What have you got on the agenda today?
Well, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow, so we're gonna head down to Malibu and go take my little boy down to the beach with my wife and just relax down there. Yeah.
It sounds brilliant. Sounds great. Thanks so much, Mark.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tony.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys. Cheers. Thank you. Oh wow, that was fantastic. Yeah, really pleased with that.
So I think what I took from that is that our degrees of separation between us and Natalie Portman has reduced significantly in
absolutely.
the last half an hour.
Absolutely. We've had some stars on the programme.
We've had some stars on. Right, are we going to do a quick poll, Tony?
We'll do 2 polls.
Okay.
We'll do a WSL poll.
Yeah.
And we'll do a women's championship poll for everyone.
So,
yeah, WSL.
Yeah, here we go. So here we go, guys. Have a go at this one here. So the question is, name the 3 clubs you think will be busiest in the transfer window.
In the January transfer window, yeah. Has it launched?
Yeah, there you go.
And this is the Women's Super League.
This is in the Women's Super League.
So, yeah, we're heading into interesting. Man U high again.
Yeah. Some incredible stats there. Attendances and
wow. I mean, I was really impressed with Mark, you know. That was really impressive. But you know, you get the long, intelligent answer. Oh, unbelievable.
Okay, we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so. Right, we'll end it there, Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, let's share those results out. So people think that Man United are going to beat Arsenal.
Yeah. Again. There's quite a good spread there. You know, there is quite a good spread. And it was interesting to hear Mark talk about, you know, the salaries at Angel City and the fact that a big transfer is not far off. So who we got? Man U, Arsenal. Well,
Man City, Arsenal, Man United seem to be the big
suspect.
three. Usual suspect. Yeah.
Let's do the championship as well. I don't know how well everyone knows the women's championship. We've got that.
This one here.
Yes, yeah. Launch that. Oh no, that's the men's championship. You've made a mistake straight away. You see the nuances. I think go further down.
Oh, hang on a sec. I'll just have to end that. Back. Yep.
The women's championship.
Here we go.
Just launched that. So what do we have? Man U, City, Arsenal. You know, you'd think Arsenal be well funded. I think whether people think Newcastle, London City. Well, it's the ones we've talked about, isn't it, as well?
Oh,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Durham's another, you know, women's club.
Yeah, that's right.
They're massively punching above the weight. You know, Sunderland and Newcastle are supporting two big clubs in the championship, the women's teams, and yet Durham are up there, close to top of the league.
Right, we'll share those, Tony.
Yeah, so it was Newcastle, London City, Birmingham, at the top.
Oh yeah, London, Newcastle,
and they, you know, whether they've got the funds to do that. The other clubs, I don't know. So, right,
let's move on, and we're going to bring on Pete O'Rourke.
Yeah, we're getting, this is the penultimate session that we've got. Hopefully, Pete's there. Hiya, Pete. Good to see, hello, Pete.
Hi, guys. You all right?
Hiya, Pete.
Really good, Pete. Have you managed to see much of today's action, or have you been busy?
Been busy. I've been on there listening to Mark Wilson, obviously talking. Unfortunately, I can't offer Malibu Beach. I've only got the cold Knaresborough winter. So yeah, we had a rainbow over there, but yeah, I wish I was in Mark's place rather than him.
And look, you're gonna talk to us about the January transfer window, predominantly for the men's team. We have talked quite a bit about the women's teams and the women's leagues. We did a poll earlier at the start of the program, and it sort of gave us an inkling into what the group think was about which teams would be busy. And I don't think there was any sort of surprises in that, really.
There wasn't. We also had Dan Plumley talking about which teams kind of had space within their PSR budget. So that's going to be interesting to double up against what you're hearing on the grapevine. And you seem to have like an intravenous line into the grapevine, Pete. So
this is like, you know, in Starsky and Hutch, where they've got a little bit of a problem and they go to Huggy Bear and he's got the word on the street. he's got the word on the, is that, am I framing it right, Pete, or is that totally wrong?
Well, I don't know. I wish I had Huggy Bear's style, but in that respect. But yeah, I try to help when I can if there's any information to help along.
And look, there's been a bit of a theme today. And look, I've just dropped Huggy Bear and Starsky and Hutch. Just feel free to drop any names. If somebody big's told you something, or you've got an in with somebody, if you can name drop that's really welcomed on today's sort of webinar. But listen, let's get into it. So, you know, we did a 3 or 4 webinars, didn't we, last January, talking specifically about the January transfer window. But just tell everyone what the sort of trends are as we go forward. What were the trends in the previous January windows?
Yeah, I've just shared my screen there with some slides of the winter
perfect.
transfer window over since 2013 up until 2024, and you can see not massive amount of money is spent in January. Obviously in 2013-14 we had £130 million spent. Big anomaly.
Pete, could you just make it a bit larger? It's just like to share the full page, I think it is.
But let me have a quick
look. If you put the Ryan's pointing to it, but I don't think you can see that. Just like make it full screen so we can see the numbers.
Yeah, just trying to get there if I can.
Bottom, I think. Bottom right you're looking at.
layout and options, entire screen. That should do it.
Yeah, perfect.
Any better?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so obviously, as I said, there has been a lot of money spent over the years on the January transfer window. We are finding more and more clubs are reluctant to spend in January because they want to do their business in the summer, which obviously gives them more time and it's a better opportunity to sign their top targets as well. The anomaly was probably during the 2022-23 season, the January window then, and that was mainly down to Chelsea and Todd Bowles flashing the cash. We had £815 million spent in that window, but then it dropped to £100 million in last January, and I think it'll be a similar story this upcoming January as well. I don't think there'll be much spent, and obviously it's those three little words that we're all accustomed to now, which is PSR and FFP, which is going to play a huge role in why clubs are reluctant to spend in the January transfer window as well. So if you look, I've got another slide here. If you look at overall spending differences between in the summer windows and then the January windows. I don't know if you guys can see this one or not, or
I'm just you've got larger, but your screen share hasn't got larger. I'm just wondering what that is.
Well, I'll give you a quick download on it anyway. Obviously, you can see green is the total spend, and then you look at summer spend is the blue line on the graph, and then January spend is red. Look how small the red is compared to the blue, and the overall total.
Wow.
It's minimal.
And like you say, Pete, that anomaly with Todd Bowley coming into Chelsea in the last January transfer window. Wow. Yeah.
So I'd expect similar. That was a sort of a real weird January transfer window that year when they broke the transfer record to sign Enzo Fernandez for £100 million, and then also Mudryk as well for £85 million. And to be fair, question marks over those two signings maybe still have to prove themselves really in a Chelsea shirt. So it shows that the January window, if you don't do your homework and do your business right, it can be an expensive mistake for a lot of clubs. And I think that's another reason why clubs are maybe reluctant to spend in January compared to the summertime. As we've spoke before, more time in the summer to do your homework on players, and then maybe if you leave it a bit later, you might get a good deal with the selling club needing to raise some funds as well. But yeah, I think January, I think it's becoming a case of now you have a bit of a famine in the January, then it becomes a feast in the summer, and that's the way clubs are looking at it. They're doing most of their spending in the summer.
And we've spoken about this in the past, and January isn't a good time to bring a foreign player into the Premier League or the Championship. It's obviously you've got to acclimatise. The weather's different. You've got to get your house, get yourself sorted. And there's a game on Tuesday night. It's not as easy, is it, in January? So I think, is there a trend that people look more closer to home? Players already here, and
yeah, I think there is. As you said, it's a big transition period for if you're signing a player from abroad. They might have to learn a new language, a new culture, get used to their teammates and how the club plays their style of football. So maybe there will be more acknowledgement maybe of homegrown players, local players. We know how important homegrown players are to PSR and FFP as well. We saw that in the summer window with clubs selling players to each other to try and get around those rules as well. So, but I think you look at last January, one of the biggest deals, one of the only biggest permanent deals in that window was Adam Wharton leaving Blackburn to go to Crystal Palace. Again, that was for around £50 million. A good deal. It's really worked out, and a real good deal for Adam Wharton because he came in, hit the ground running, and even made the England squad for the Euros.
So
win-win for
transfer, him. Yeah, what a transfer that was. And I think, was it not January Ipswich signed a striker as well in the January, I think last year?
They signed Al Hamadi from AFC Wimbledon, and obviously he helped Ipswich get over the line in promotion as well. And I think Ipswich were quite smart in the preceding transfer windows as well, because when they were in League One, there was no PSR or FFP to deal with, so they were able to go out there and make some big signings on decent wages. And they didn't have to worry about any ramifications of PSR and FFP. And look at the success they've had in the last 2 seasons: promotion from League One, automatic promotion, and from the Championship as well. And I think Kieran McKenna and the hierarchy at Ipswich have done a really good job. They were quite smart to capitalise on that lack of PSR involvement when they were in League One.
It's really difficult to do that, to come up from League One and then come up straight away from the Championship into the Premier League. It takes some doing, Pete, doesn't it?
Oh, massively. We've seen a few clubs do it over the years. Sheffield United Did it with Chris Wilder, and then obviously we've seen Kieran McKenna and Ipswich do it. And as I said, it's a bit about momentum, I think. That's key when you're on a winning run, to keep that momentum going, and that's what those clubs did. But they were also smart in the transfer window, and I think Ipswich, you look at most of their signings in this summer window just gone. Most of them were British players, so Kieran McKenna wanted a British core in that side, and although they're down near the bottom of the table, they have proved to be hard to beat, as they showed in Ruben Amorim's first game as Manchester United manager. For me, they were probably the better team on the day and should have really got a result. But I think positive vibes at Ipswich that maybe they could have a good second half of the season and get themselves out of trouble.
Yeah, and do you think? I mean, we talked about it before about the clubs that are looking to get promoted from the Championship, or the clubs that might be facing relegation from the Premier League, and also the clubs that are on the fringes of maybe European competition or strengthening again. Is that going to be the same? Those are the clubs that are looking to strengthen, and the middle band, not so much.
Yeah, I think that trend will probably continue. You'll have the teams trying to fight to get into that lucrative top four in the Premier League. We know how vast those squads are. The likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea have all spent big over the years. Their squad is pretty packed. But you'll have other teams there, maybe like a Fulham or a Brighton, who are pushing up to the top end of the table and having very impressive seasons. I would imagine they will be relatively busy looking to strengthen the squad. We've seen that Brighton are willing to let Evan Ferguson go out on loan, which comes as a massive surprise considering he was being talked about as a £100 million player maybe 18 months ago.
It's just going to be interesting to see if they'll allow him to go to another Premier League club, because I don't see how that would be in their interest, really. It's hard to see where that works, because I can't see him dropping down.
Well, I could see somebody like Leeds United, or somebody like that, the top of the Championship, maybe with a well-resourced, and obviously Leeds were the biggest income generators of transfer fees in summer. So there must be some. You love that. There must be some money in the bank. Well, I'm Leeds, there must be some money in the bank at Leeds, surely.
Yeah, there will be a bit of money, obviously, having sold the likes of Somerville and obviously Archie Gray, but I think Leeds needed to bring in a lot of money last summer as well, after failing to win promotion, just to balance the books and to avoid any PSR sanctions as well. So I think a lot of that money was probably chewed up to sort of pay off any debts or bills in that respect. But getting back to Evan Ferguson, if he was to go to one of the chasing clubs in the Championship looking for promotion, he could prove the difference. If he come in and scores the goals, there will be Premier League interest in him as well. There'll be clubs down the bottom end who are fighting to stay up. The likes of Leicester, I'm sure, will be all over him. Southampton have struggled for goals. I'm sure they would be also looking at him. So, like Ryan says, it just depends where Brighton, they are willing to loan out Ferguson. It's just whether they're willing to let him go to the Premier League. Because
he's got to be on Celtic's radar as well, Pete.
Yeah, obviously the Irish links there as well. You think Celtic could be looking at him, and I'm sure it could be something that Evan Ferguson could be interested in as well. Go and play possibly European football with Celtic if they progress in the Champions League into the new year as well. But as I said,
you're good, you two, aren't you? You're good, you two. You engineering a transfer for a player.
It just makes sense.
If Evan's agent's on, don't take this personally. I'm sure you've got it covered. You've got it.
Yeah, covered. He knows more than we do.
He knows exactly where the lad's going, or he's got a couple that he's talking to. And I often frame January as a loans window.
Yeah,
would that be fair?
Yeah. 100%. As we said, we looked at those slides earlier. There wasn't a massive spend in January windows apart from 2023 when Todd Bowley got his checkbook out and sort of splashed it around in that respect. But you look at deadline day last year, I think most of the deals were loan deals. So loan deals are dominating rather than permanent deals. I think that's due to the timeline as well and the cost effectiveness of deals. Clubs don't want to be spending huge amounts of money in January because of PSR and FFP, and you can't really sign your top targets in January. We all know that the selling club does not want to lose their best player to a potential rival. So that's why I think loan deals will probably dominate this upcoming January transfer window again. And that obviously opens up the European market as well, because over the last few years, I've noticed it's almost been more about clubs looking to offload players rather than sign players. So any unhappy players or players who aren't getting regular minutes, let's go back to Evan Ferguson. He's probably going to get loaned out because he's not playing regularly at Brighton. So there'll be plenty of opportunities, I think, for loan signings and some unhappy players to move on.
Yeah, and listen, we've seen players maybe go to the Bundesliga and you know, really have a good time in the Bundesliga from Premier League clubs. You know, do you think that that's a pathway that's getting more and more popular?
Yeah, well, it's because of the success of the players that have made that move from England to Germany. Jadon Sancho's done it twice. He went back last January, which was one of the biggest deals of the last January transfer window, when he returned to Borussia Dortmund from Manchester United because he had fallen out of favour under Erik ten Hag. And Sancho was electric again at Dortmund, helping them reach the Champions League final. And then obviously he ends up making that move to Chelsea in the summer transfer window. But the Bundesliga, the clubs in Germany, they do offer a quicker pathway, probably for some of these younger players.
Yeah.
Look what they did with Jude Bellingham. They set him on the road to superstardom when they signed him from Birmingham, beat a lot of Premier League clubs to his signature, and they give Bellingham that opportunity to start in the Bundesliga and start in the Champions League, and it's done his career a power of good, really, because look at the amount of games and experience he's got at such a young age. And there's other players as well, like Jimmy Bino Gittens, who's doing very well for Dortmund now as well, making a lot of headlines, and he could be another big signing in the future, maybe to return to the Premier League. But yeah, the Germans are smart. They will try and snare the best talent from the English clubs and offer them that pathway to regular first team football, probably quicker than you would get from the Premier League clubs.
Yeah, and there's been quite a few players moving to Serie A in Italy. You know, there's a couple over there that are doing particularly well. Tammy Abraham springs to mind.
Yeah, Tammy's had a good time over there. Again, maybe struggled for regular minutes at Chelsea, or maybe struggled to establish himself as a regular in that side under various different managers. And he's done really well initially at Roma, now at AC Milan. He's playing Champions League football. He's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. So why would he want to return to the Premier League? He's got everything that he needs right now at AC Milan. We've seen others also make that move to Serie A. They've had a big thing for Scottish players in Serie A as well. Scott McTominay, absolutely earning rave reviews in Napoli. He's made that brave decision.
Isn't he, Pete?
Yeah, he is, mate. They love him over there. He's getting pizzas named after him and everything, and being talked about as the best.
McTominay pizza. What's on that then, Pete?
Oh, well, hopefully not pineapple.
Oh, you said a dirty word there.
Square sausage and haggis.
It's got to be haggis. It's got to be haggis, and then a can of Iron Brew or something like that. Maybe if he's Scottish, to go along with that one. But he's took that brave decision to leave Manchester United because he could have stayed and been a squad player at United, but he's gone to Napoli with Antonio Conte. Really impressed. As I said, he probably, as it stands right now, he's probably in the running for the Player of the Year over there. He's been that good.
Oh, wow, wow.
Billy Gilmore as well was another one that made the
Gilmore,
to Napoli, and Napoli flying high at the top of Serie A as well.
It seems like the Bundesliga and Serie A is like, those are the two sort of destinations for out of favour Premier League players, if you like. Nothing in Spain though, really, yeah?
No, I suppose the Spanish market is.
Bellingham's already there, but that was,
that was a huge money deal when they signed Dortmund.
But we haven't really had much of an influx of British players for a while. I mean, obviously,
got Ollie McBurney's over there playing.
Is Ollie McBurney over there?
He's over there. Went on a free transfer in the summer, and I think he's doing okay. But yeah, obviously the Spanish market is maybe a harder one to get into. They do obviously have the finances to go out there and sign the best players. You got the big clubs like the Real Madrids, Atletico Madrids, obviously Barcelona. We know their financial problems, so they're just promoting from their La Masia Academy, and look at the success they're having with that, with the crop of youngsters coming through there. So Spanish clubs obviously do offer opportunities to their younger players that come through their academies as well. So maybe that's why there's not as many English players making that move to Spain.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we've mentioned Man U on a couple of occasions in different sessions, and Dan Ashworth, who's the new sporting director at Man U. I assume it looks like a big job looking from the outside. He's gone from, he's had a Brighton, Newcastle, and now Manchester United. They've just changed the head coach, and everyone on this call has sort of said they'll be the busiest in January. What sort of numbers are we looking at? What sort of players are we looking at?
I'm not so sure they will be busy in January. I think ideally they would like to be, but I don't think the finances are there to go out and splash the money that probably Ruben Amorim wants. He will be looking a number of new signings, but I think he might have to wait until the summer. Obviously, United are sort of skirting around FFP and PSR, and following the expensive sacking of Erik ten Hag as well, that doesn't help. Around £18 million in that one, so that's going to hit the coffers at Old Trafford. So I think if United are to do business, lads, I think they're going to have to sell before they can buy in January. Maybe get rid of some fringe players, and that'll trim the squad and raise some funds. But yeah, we saw against Ipswich. I think there's going to be a lot of squad personnel at Manchester United over the upcoming transfer windows, because I don't think Ruben Amorim, I think he accepts that he doesn't have the players at his disposal right now to play the way he wants to play in that 3-4-3 formation.
Pete, what one that's been doing the rounds is Pogba going back to Man United. Is that anything? Have you heard that?
I've seen the rumor, but absolutely no chance. I don't see that for the life of me. He obviously left in acrimonious circumstances last time. I think there was talk that he might just go back to Carrington to train as he works to regain his fitness after being out for such a long time. But yeah, I don't see Paul Pogba pulling on a Manchester United shirt again. I think he will have options in his native France, and there will be big interest in this Saudi Arabia and also in the MLS, I think, for Pogba.
I could see him going to the Saudi league potentially. I've been trying to shoehorn multi-club organisations into the conversations at the day. Haven't quite managed it yet. And it's just that red button, Ryan. If you, he's lighting us up there. Thank you for that, Ryan. So do you see that? I get the feeling that multi-clubs, there's lots of multi-clubs about, but they're not really operating as the sort of business model suggests. So, you know, Newcastle have Saudi ownership or PIF ownership, and there's 4 clubs in Saudi Arabia there who also have PIF ownership. Is there likely to be any movement between them clubs, or the City group? Are they likely to move some of the City players out and you know, amongst their basket of other clubs?
Yeah, we saw a bit in the summer with the City group. We saw Savinho making that move to Manchester City, who was at Girona and Troyes before that. So obviously Man City took advantage of that to sign the Brazilian, and he looks a really smart signing for Pep Guardiola's side as well, and I think he's had a good impact. As you said, we've been lots of speculation about the Saudi influence at Newcastle, as you said, all owned by PIF, but there has not been any deals done yet. Obviously, we saw St. Maximum leave Newcastle to go out to Saudi Arabia, and that obviously helped Newcastle United's PSR and FFP situation. I think obviously Eddie Howe ideally would like to probably take advantage of that relationship between those clubs, the multi-club thing with PIF, but I don't think it's anything's on the agenda for January. We know that Newcastle's owners were looking to buy a feeder club in Belgium. There was lots of talks with several clubs when Amanda Staveley was there. They went out and did their homework on a number of clubs, and I think they made a couple of offers as well, but couldn't get those deals over the line. But I still think it's a part of the process, and they've got Paul Mitchell in there, who's obviously worked at RB Leipzig, so he's worked for a multi-club strategy before, so he'll be well aware of that, and I'm sure going forward he will play a key role as Newcastle's Saudi owners want to sort of become a multi-club partnership with the other clubs as well. So it's about finding the right deal. There's been a lot of talk that English clubs now are looking at the South American market to see if they can maybe get involved with some Brazilian clubs and partner up with them and see if there's any way of doing that. But yeah, I think going forward, I think most of the big boys in the Premier League will be looking to go down that avenue of potential multi-club ownership.
Yeah, and Jurgen Klopp, you mentioned Red Bull there. Jurgen Klopp's now in charge of, is he head of recruitment or head? It's like a sporting director role in the Red Bull group, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice gig, I would say, probably for Jurgen Klopp. Got a bit of stick from it from his old clubs who aren't too happy with the whole multi-club thing in Red Bull. But yeah, Red Bull have obviously made him a big deal to lure him into it, and his experience and his know-how, I'm sure, will come in very handy for all those clubs involved under the Red Bull umbrella, which it also includes Leeds United. So we now know that Red Bull are involved there. So will Jurgen Klopp have any insight or help to give Leeds as they bid to win promotion back to the Premier League? He's got a fellow German there, and Daniel Farke, as well as manager.
It seems I was going to mention Leeds because it seems to me that if they get, you know, 1 or 2 players in, key players who are going to be starters potentially, is that going to, you know, it could be from the Red Bull group.
Yeah, potentially. It's something you would definitely want to utilize if you have those connections and links to try and sign some players from the whole family. As I said, RB Leipzig are a top side in Germany and have been for a number of years. So if Leeds United can use those connections to strengthen the squad and boost their own bid for promotion, it would only make sense. I think Leeds will be looking to be busy in the window. Obviously, they've had a few problems in midfield with injuries, so maybe another midfielder and possibly a striker, I think, in January, just to help them get over the line. And as I said, everybody in that championship wants to be back in the promised land of the Premier League because that's where the money is.
Yeah, and you talked about head coach, like for Manchester United, maybe not having the money spent. You know, is it always the case that head coaches come in and want to remodel the squad and want to, you know, with the influence of sporting directors, Pete, is it always the case that the head coach comes in and wants to change things, you know? And I'm thinking, well, the Leicester one hasn't, that Leicester job hasn't been given yet, has it? Or has there been any news on that?
Not yet. Getting close. They're in talks with Ruud van Nistelrooy and hoping to land the Dutchman if they can. I think talks are at an advanced stage right now, so they're hoping to get a deal done by the weekend. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on to see how he gets on after he had that short spell in charge at Manchester United following the sacking of Erik ten Hag. But yeah, obviously we know head coaches, when they come into the job, they want to make lots of changes and lots of signings, but I think you got to be careful. You can't be making too many changes straight away. You got the head coach will come in, assess the squad for weeks and a couple of months to see what he's got on offer, and then make decisions on players on who he wants going forward long term and who he's willing to get rid of. So, as I said, Ruben Amorim probably does want about 4 or 5 signings, but I think maybe Manchester United might only make 1 in January, and that'll be a left back because they are desperate to bring one in due to the ongoing injury issues of Luke Shaw and Tyrell Malacia. So I think if they could get a left back, I think that will be their priority position to strengthen in January.
So if any of the agents out there have got a left back, Man United's the place. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. One of the other head coaches I was going to bring up was Mark Robins at Coventry. What the hell happened there?
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on that? Because it just from looking from the outside, he was doing a great job at Coventry, wasn't he?
Yeah, brilliant job. Look, he was a game away from getting them promoted to the Premier League 2 seasons ago when they lost to Luton Town. And as I said, they have lost a couple of their best players and transfer windows gone by. Gyökeres ended up leaving after they failed to win promotion. And look at how he's going at Sporting right now. Most probably lethal marksman in Europe right now. But yeah, Mark Robins did a remarkable job. I think that sacking caught a lot of people by surprise. But in football, we shouldn't be surprised anymore because owners and everybody else might have their own decisions. I think maybe losing Adi Vivash as assistant coach probably didn't do Mark Robins a lot of good. He's very highly respected and did a great job with the players as well. So I think that might have affected results this season. I think he was a big miss. Not a lot of being talked about that. But I think he was very influential in the coaching of the Coventry City players. But I think if Mark Robins...
Where did he go, Pete?
Still available.
Still available, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Interesting. Gyökeres, though, he should be a target, shouldn't he?
He's got to be a target.
He's got to be one of the big targets of, you know, he's played here, all right, be it in the Championship, but you'd think somebody pushing, I think he's beyond the Championship. I think now he's got to be going to the Premier League somewhere, you know, a club that maybe wants to stay in the Premier League and or get into Europe potentially.
You know, just on the Mark Robins one, there was a meeting between the owner and like a selection of the supporters where the owner said the entire business model of the football club was predicated on getting to the Premier League almost imminently. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, I think when that's been kind of like ultimately kind of fed back, you can't build your model based on that, can you?
It's like 24 clubs, Pete, in the Championship all have the same aim that they'd love to get in the Premier League. But
you all have the same aim.
Yeah,
you can't build your business on that. You know, it's
no pressure on Frank Lampard then going in.
Well,
Get us promoted, or that's it.
Yeah, listen, Pete, that's been fantastic. We've gone through half an hour really, really quickly. The guys can catch you. You're very active on X, aren't you? And you know, across a lot of social media. So thank you so much for that. That's been really, really useful. And we'll see you in the transfer window.
Yep, no worries, guys. Have a good Christmas and everything else, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, Christmas is around the corner. Cheers, Pete.
Hey guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, brilliant. That was great. Do make sure you check Pete out on Twitter, X. You're right. Yeah, I'm old school. I say Twitter.
Yeah.
Right, are we going to do one more poll before our final?
Yeah, we'll do the championship poll, because we just had Pete on talking about the championship.
Oh, I'm not sure if I can do that now. Relaunch poll. Here we can. Yeah,
you can.
Here we go.
So let's the guys. I mean, I think we've bigged up Leeds United. One or two.
I think you have.
Yeah. Well, I think there must be some money out of that 100 million.
No, I'm telling you that Evan Ferguson to Celtic, that makes so much sense.
And it's not a competitor team in the.
He could go and play in Europe.
He'll get you what, 10, 12 goals between now and then, or more.
Yeah, he has the experience of playing at Celtic.
Yeah. Here we go. We're getting some. Yeah, Leeds and Sheffield United are pulling ahead here. Yeah, I like these polls.
I'll tell you, I don't expect to spend much money, Sunderland.
You don't?
No.
Yeah, Middlesbrough.
No.
Middlesbrough going. Yeah. Middlesbrough have been on fire. They were a bit inconsistent, Ryan.
They have been,
and now they've just been smashing teams. I think they're playing tonight is Blackburn Rovers.
Middlesbrough
Blackburn Rovers tonight. So, you know, Blackburn, watch out, because Middlesbrough being putting 4 or 5 past. And I just look at they've got such a great number of good midfielders. They're really good.
Is Hackney injured tonight? Is he?
I don't know. He's a good player, isn't he?
I mean, he could be.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give it 30 more seconds.
Yeah. So the guys have gone for Leeds. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. We'll stop it there. Let's share the results. Leeds, Sheffield United, Burnley, Middlesbrough,
and down near the bottom. Oh, you see, Hull are down near the bottom. That's a big surprise for Hull.
Portsmouth, I think they were probably hoping that they would have a bit more success than what they've had so far. Where Derby? No,
Dan Plumley's voting for Sheffield Wednesdays. He's hopeful. He's hopeful. Probably Norwich. I could see Norwich spending. I could see Norwich spending.
Mind you, they had a good result. Was it last night they played?
Yeah, they won 1-0 last night. I went down to see.
But they won 6, didn't they?
No, was it 6? Was it?
No. Didn't they beat Plymouth 6-1?
Oh, I don't know. I must have missed that one. I was just going to big up. Georgi Chekvatadze for Watford, because he, as every time I've seen him, has been different class. You know, I've seen him international team. I was down at Watford a couple of weeks ago. Terrific player, him. Really good.
Right, we've been absolutely non-stop today, but it's an absolute delight to welcome our final guest of the day, long-time supporter of the Football Transfer Forum, and we've been a long-time supporter of him, of course, as well. It is Kieran Maguire. Now
we've kept the best till last, haven't we? Here he is.
Kieran, I've just called it that Evan Ferguson will go to Celtic in January. I know, as a Brighton fan, what are you thinking?
I think he'd like to score the goals that help Brighton get into the Champions League next season.
You would say that. You would say that, wouldn't you? You would say that.
Kieran, how are you?
I'm good. I'm calling you from a little office in the PFA headquarters in London. So I've been doing a course for their guys today, players who are looking to transition from dressing room to boardroom as far as their careers are concerned. So it's good that A, the unions offering them this opportunities, and B, we've got so many people within the industry who've got the foresight and the desire to contribute. And this is where I think they've got a big advantage, because They have been in the dressing room. They do have the unique insight of an industry which is like no other. And all of these clowns that are coming from private equity and banking and finance, who think that football is exactly the same as running a washing machine factory company, have been proven wrong time and time again.
Yeah. You've gone in two-footed there. You've gone in hard straight away, haven't you, Kieran? Clowns, private equity,
and washing machines.
And washing machines,
And
yeah.
washing machines.
Listen, the PFA is a totally different animal under Maher, isn't it? Do you agree, Kieran?
Yes. He has changed its focus in one of development support and education for the members, and I think the members appreciate it. It was a it was a big decision that was made, and I think you've got to give a lot of credit to the panel, who the likes of Gary Neville and so on, who listened to the different candidates for the role, and certainly I think Maheta's experience, A, as being a professional footballer, B, as being a lawyer, and C, as being a chief executive of a football club, have been put to good use for the benefit of its members.
Yeah. Kieran, can I just ask you?
And he's a Brighton legend, of course.
I knew you were going to say that.
That was your vote.
Yeah,
that was your 2 pennies worth. When was the last time you were in a changing room?
I think, well, a football changing room.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Not down to your local H&M
gym. No.
Did you play at all?
Well, I played in the Manchester Accountants League.
Oh, well, it sounds like a top league, that one.
The standard wasn't very good, but the table always added up, and we were very good at calculating the fines.
Reporting of the results was
Yes.
spot on. Yeah.
So listen, you're on today. You're going to talk about US investment into the UK. So we'll start with that. We'll start with, well, what is the extent? Just run us through some of the clubs that are being, US investments being touching upon.
Well, I guess the first investment, and the one which probably still attracts the most attention, was that of the Glazer family in 2005, and that was the very first leverage buyout. And for people not familiar with the phrase, the way that it works is you've got somebody that wants to buy a business, but they're skint. So what they do is they arrange for the company itself to borrow money to pay to give them the money to buy out the existing shareholders. And this has been the case with the Glazers. It's been a spectacularly successful investment from their point of view. So they probably put in an initial 60 or 70 million pounds. They sold a quarter of the club to Jim Ratcliffe earlier this year for around about 1.3 billion. So that values Manchester United at over 5 billion pounds. During their period of ownership, again, they've not put money in. They have been paying themselves sizable dividends for quite a few years, although there's now a hiatus on that. They have become very high profile. We've seen other clubs such as Burnley replicate the model to varying degrees of success. And I think that they've shown American investors that there is money to be made from football, even if the clubs aren't making profits themselves, because what you can do is you can sell off bits and pieces of the clubs. And on the back of that, we are now in the position where half the clubs in the Premier League are effectively American owned, the high profile ones, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. We've got Everton about to be acquired by American owners, and people keep asking why they want. And I think we can sort of narrow down that to a few reasons. First of all, football clubs are cheap. And you might say, well, hold on, £2.5 billion to buy Chelsea. That wasn't cheap. But if you compare that to the Dallas Cowboys, who went for 3 or 4 times that amount of money, it is. You've got Bill Foley coming in at Bournemouth, buying Bournemouth for 120 million. If he wanted to buy an MLS club, he'd be talking at a an MLS expansion fee for the franchise of a minimum, I'd say $300 to $400 million. That's before you build the stadium. That's before you build the fan base. That's before you recruit the players and the coach.
Wow.
So it is cheap. The dollar is doing really strong, which makes investing in Europe and in England in particular very, very valuable. The American economy's been growing at twice the rate of the UK economy. So there's more billionaires with spare cash. And I know this sounds nonsensical tween us. They've all seen what's happened at Wrexham and they love the show.
Yeah.
And they all watch Ted Lasso and they think if they come across to England, they'll be able to walk down to the local pub and there'll be half a dozen fans singing slightly risque songs and dancing around the old piano. And they think that that's the whole of English football. And it's not just at Premier League level that we're seeing this investment. We've now got American owners at Carlisle. We've got American owners at Crawley. We've got American owners in Scotland, Dundee United, Hibernian, and so on. And there are other clubs in play at present, which I can't mention, but including Premier League clubs where American investors are looking at the opportunities. So it's cheap, it's exciting, it gives you fame and notoriety. In terms of bangs per buck, nobody's ever heard of the Glazers before, but they have now. And we've got, somebody said here, I think Josie said, Tranmere, there's talk about Rihanna and is it Rocky 8 or so? There's some, I'm...
You were down with the kids, Kieran. You're down with the kids, you are,
Kieran. Who is it? The music from your area of the country, Tony. I'm still an Angelic Upstarts fan. That's as far as it goes.
Oh, somebody's helped you out there kindly.
ASAP Rocky.
ASAP Rocky. Yeah, you're showing your age now, Kieran.
Yeah, I'll put on a baseball cap back to front.
We've had a bit of name dropping as a theme, and we've just had Rihanna name drop.
Yeah. ASAP Rocky.
ASAP Rocky as well. Yeah. If you want to drop somebody's name, please do so. It's a quite a high bar. Kieran, so you've said why it's sort of happening, but is it just the pounds and pence? You said there's a few more things, but when the pounds and pence are adding up, everything else is a bonus, isn't it?
It is. If you put yourself in the position of an American billionaire, you're at that cocktail party. Everybody else has got 3 helicopters. Everybody else has got a ranch in Texas. Everybody else has got an apartment in Monaco, and everybody else has got a yacht. So how do you make a difference as a billionaire? How do you network? How do you own the room? You say, I've just bought a Premier League football club, a bit like Ryan Reynolds and McElhenney hope to have in a couple of years' time. My football club is hosting Liverpool or Manchester United or Chelsea or Newcastle United in a couple of weeks. Would you like to come in the director's box?
Or Stockport away. No, but there's been a lot. You mentioned some of the successes. I think you can say I don't see the Glazers as being successful. I don't see Burnley as being successful. I don't see the guys at Swansea being successful. Liverpool, I do see them being successful, but who do you see as the successes and failures, Kieran?
From a financial position, is a very successful one because they put in nothing and they've taken away $1 billion. I agree with you entirely in respect of Liverpool. Liverpool owners bought the club for £300 million in 2010. They've sold 10% of the club for £300 million in the last couple of years. So they've got 90% of Liverpool for nothing. Have there been negative experiences? If you talk to Ellis Short, if you talk to Randy Lerner at Sunderland and Villa, they walked away. It cost them hundreds of millions, but that was a few years ago. I think what we've seen since the Chelsea takeover in 2021, Chelsea went for 8 times the price of Newcastle United less than a year later. So either Mike Ashley sold Newcastle for too much, Todd Bowley bought Chelsea for too much,
too little.
the market has completely changed. And I honestly think it's the latter. That there's only 92 clubs available. There's only 20 Premier League clubs available.
Yeah.
And you've got this huge wash of cash held by people who've had very successful personal careers. And you're right to say that we ought to look at it from a perspective other than just financial. It's an executive toy. It's a trophy asset. You could go and buy fine arts. You could go and buy racehorses. But if you buy a Premier League football club, your name is now known in 190 different countries around the world. You don't get that for buying a painting.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, because I thought Newcastle was undervalued. I thought getting it for over, was it 300 to
305? Yeah.
305 million was an absolute. I think it was a bargain. But I think the PFI bought a painting the next week for 400 million. And when you say it like that, you know, this club and this heritage and what that represents, and the eyeballs that are watching Newcastle and that painting, you're spot on. You're spot on.
And Kieran, you know, you talk about the volume of Premier League clubs now that are kind of American owned or ran, if you like. Are we getting up to the point now where there needs to be a bit of concern? I mean, is this something the regulator's going to think about? I mean, you know, say it got up to that magic number of 14, which is what you need to, you know, enact change within the Premier League.
You need to run the Premier League. If you get 14 votes, you're running the Premier League, aren't you?
You know, is this something that the Premier League will look at, the kind of the demographic? And then we're getting into all sorts of, as you would say, the lawyers will be getting the car manufacturing brochures out, won't they?
Exactly. American owners want to have the best of what we presently have in European football and what they regard as the best that is offered from American sports. So in an ideal world, they would like to replace 2 halves with 4 quarters. And this was one of the proposals of Super League. Yeah, people sort of forget that. People just got so angry about Super League, they didn't look at the fine print. Yeah. And
wow, why
is the NFL so successful as a business? It's because they got advert breaks every 3 or 4 minutes, because it's a sport. Football's a bit rubbish in relation to that. Yeah. You've got 45 minutes without an ad break. So so to cut it, you know, to change it into 4 quarters would be one way of achieving that. And then of course you've got 3 sessions when you can sell people food and drink instead of 1 during the match. All of these things I think would be very popular with American owners. Now, you'd have to get FIFA on board for that. I think what we're learning from Gianni Infantino is Gianni Infantino will get on top of any horse if it's in Gianni Infantino's interest to do so. So I wouldn't rule that out. I think the big fear is, whilst you might begrudgingly go along with the 4 quarters, is the other thing American sports franchise owners like is the fact it's a sealed league and they are guaranteed revenues from year to year. Yeah. So I think the big fear would be the abolition or the restriction of promotion and relegation. English football fans are actually quite a tolerable bunch. You know, we put up with kickoff times being changed. We put up with being charged £125 for a pitch-ready shirt. We put up with sort of waterfalls where there should be roofs and so on. But I think to get rid of the pyramid, to get rid of promotion and relegation would be a really hard sell. And whilst I think it is a fear which should not be ignored, I don't think it's something which is likely to be the case. I think there's a greater chance of the move to matches taking place overseas, because we've seen Tebas in La Liga say recently that that's what they want to do. There was a proposal to host Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid in New York, and I think that match was originally slated for January or February, and then they realised that the logistics are actually, there wasn't enough time to organise it, but they want to introduce that next year. And if that is the case, this is what you will get from the Premier League US owners. we don't want to host matches overseas, but we want to remain competitive with La Liga. They're getting extra money from matches taking place in the United States. So reluctantly, we're going to have to follow that. So there will be a narrative, and you've only got to look to see what happened at Liverpool. One of the Liverpool owners suggests, I think it would be great to have all of the Premier League fixtures taking place in different markets over the same weekend. So you've got one in Mumbai, you've got one in New York, you've got one in Beijing, you've got one in Riyadh. You know, the Premier League away day. And that went down like a lead balloon. And then the next thing that happens is John Henry says, "Oh no, we didn't really mean it, really." But they're going to keep knocking on that door, because that door has got a big amount of cash behind it. As a fan who, as far as I'm concerned, a trip to Newcastle from Brighton and back is far enough for me in a day. The idea of going to Beijing or Riyadh to see us play Wolves at home or away seems a bit harsh. But I think the traditional fan, to a certain extent, has outlived their usefulness as far as owners are concerned, and we are replaceable. And that is something which is going to be a bit of a fight. And I think they have to be a little bit careful here, because what sets the Premier League and European football apart, I've watched matches in MLS, and it's great, but it's a form of entertainment. The atmosphere that we have in European football, which turns a sterile piece of concrete into a living, breathing organism, because it means so much more, to sort of paraphrase Liverpool's own slogan, is in danger of being destroyed if owners go down that particular route. But it could be, they say, we don't actually care, it's more profitable to do so.
Yeah. So do you see this as the role of the regulator to stop then, Kieran?
Under the statute that we've got proposed, and it should also be noted that when the independent regulator bill went through the House of Lords on Monday, there were 330 amendments proposed. An awful lot of those by Karen Brady, to be fair, who just happened to be in the House. It's just a coincidence that she's involved with the club. And also is also in the House of Lords. So we don't know exactly what the regulator's remit will be, but the draft remit is that fans have to be consulted, and fans could potentially have a power of veto in relation to matches taking place overseas. But then you say, well, hold on, who are these fans? Because Manchester United claim to have 1.1 billion fans globally, and if they have a poll of all of their members, it's not going to be the people in Harperhay and Gorton and Urmston who are going to make the difference in terms of votes. It could be Manchester United's fan base in Scandinavia or Ireland or Indonesia.
Yeah, that's it. The Manchester United Shanghai branch, you could potentially have.
Well, they'll want games in Shanghai or wherever. You know what I mean? It's an interesting movable feast. But the financial. Have you read the bill, Kieran? The financial. So that's one person.
Of course he has.
That's one person. That's one person I've met who's actually read it.
I bet you've read it more than once. I know he has.
I have, yes, but then I've got no friends, life, or personality, so there's nothing else for me to
do. But that goes back to Karen Brady putting 300 amendments. Is that just going to delay it, kick the can down the?
Well, she put through about 30 of those 300, but she put through more than anybody else. I think it is a case of trying to delay the introduction of the regulator as long as possible. And it makes sense. If I was a Premier League owner, I would be applauding what she's done, because the longer it takes to have a deal between the Premier League and the EFL, the more money that's kept within the Premier League until that deal's signed off. So there is an element of self-interest in it. The main issues in terms of the regulator are actually, some of them are sort of box ticking, i.e. you can't change the home shirt colour or the badge without the approval of fans. So what? Let's be honest, it's not really moving the dial that much. No. You can't move grounds unless you get fan approval. I think that's a good measure, because do you want another Wimbledon? and MK Don's issue, or do you want somebody buying a club in England and then saying, right, we're going to relocate to Dublin because we reckon there's a big market there, or we're going to relocate the geographical position of the club, because FIFA have changed its rules, so that that conceivably could happen going forward. So I think that's a positive. The owners and directors test is being beefed up. If it discourages rogue owners coming into the game, again, that's a positive.
Yeah.
All of those, I don't think that there's a lot of fuss coming from the Premier League itself. The big issue is the deal between the Premier League and the EFL. And the way that the legislation has been reworded, it used to be the regulator would take a proposal from the Premier League and a proposal from the EFL and had to choose the best of the two. Under the new rules, they can look at them both. They say, well, they're both a bit rubbish. We're going to come up with a different distribution model and see how that operates.
I mean, how long can the EFL hold on, though, Kieran? I mean, this is the other dynamic. At some point, it's okay, being entrenched at the moment. At some point, a deal's got to happen, hasn't it?
Well, from the Premier League's point of view, it doesn't have to happen. The Premier League's more than happy for the present deal to keep on rolling forwards. Yeah. And what has the EFL got in its armoury? The only negotiating chip that the EFL has is the two-legged Carabao Cup semi-final. Yeah. And I'm not being rude. I don't know anybody that wants it. I don't know fans that want it. I don't know clubs that want it. They certainly don't want it in the Premier League, because it ties up one more midweek fixture. But I also absolutely understand the EFL's position in saying we're not prepared to give it up, because if we do, then we're going into a battle with no bullets whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's a very small munition.
Yeah.
Kieran, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Just sort of finishing off on the US theme. How far can Wrexham go, do you think?
I think the challenge for Wrexham is that you can buy yourself out of the National League when it costs them, it costs them the thick end of $100,000 a week. You can buy yourself out of League Two, and you can broadly do the same out of League One as well. You get to the Championship, and you're swimming in a completely different pool. You've got Leeds United, you've got Borough, you've got Sunderland there. Yeah, I mean, some of those clubs might go up. If you look at the clubs potentially coming down, we could have Crystal Palace down, we could have Everton down. The average losses in the EFL Championship are £400,000 a week for clubs that are getting crowds of 35, 40,000 in some instances. So getting to the Championship is one thing. I think Wrexham would then have to have a financial reset. They'd have to perhaps try to attract some more external investment. And that's what Reynolds and McElhenney want to do. And you spoke about name dropping earlier. I think I ought to name drop that Ryan Reynolds is now following me on Twitter. So it could be that he might drop me a line and say,
he's going to ask you for some of your cash, Kieran, into Wrexham. That's what we're doing.
Do you know who commented on one of my posts, Kieran? Paul Brunson. Now, it's a bit obscure. You've got to have watched them Married at First Sight. He's the relationships expert who's now a part of Sutton United.
Oh, is he?
American owner, but it was a random way it came about. He got pulled out of a hat on the Sunday Brunch episode, and he's now involved at Sutton United as an American owner. Not financially, I might add, purely emotionally.
That's brilliant. My wife will be so jealous.
Well, you've mentioned Paul Brunson. She'll know. She's probably been trying to get you to watch Married at First Sight for the relationship coaching, and she hasn't really achieved that.
But I think you've had an interaction, haven't you?
We have.
You've had a digital interaction. Okay. Kieran, in terms of Wrexham getting out of League One, then how are they managing to get around the salary cost management protocol? Is all the debt being converted into being written off into shares?
Yes, I mean, under the way that it works in League One, you are limited to 60%
Yeah.
in terms of traditional streams of revenue. But we've then got something called football fortune. So
Yeah.
effectively says for every pound you make from your cup runs, from your player sales, and most importantly, from the equity investment into clubs, you can spend an extra pound on wages. And that's why we've seen Birmingham City being able to spend £30 million in the most recent transfer window, because the owners put in £100 million worth of equity during the summer of summer 24.
Yeah. So as long as it goes in as equity, it's not effectively affecting the balance sheet in any respect in that research. It's not going on as a sort of loan or a credit or anything. Then
that's right. Okay. If there's no obligation to repay it,
yeah,
you can put in £1 and get £1 out in terms of wages and transfer fees and so on.
Great. Thank you so much, Kieran. We'll watch.
Brilliant.
We'll watch your. I'd love to see you live in Newcastle, and next time you're up, I'll try and get a show. We'll get a venue, get a show done.
That'd be great.
That'd be brilliant.
That'd be fantastic. Cheers, Kieran.
Cheers, guys. Great to see you again.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Well, Ryan, that was the main man himself, Kieran Maguire.
Absolutely.
Very, very good to see him.
Well, and what a great person to finish on. Well, there we go. We've reached the conclusion.
Wow.
We've got through so much today. We've realised that our degrees of separation to Natalie Portman is like 3 or 4 maximum. We've had Steffi Graf, Andre Agassi, Ray Winston.
Yeah.
What's your guy called?
Paul Brunson.
Paul Brunson.
I tell you what, I think we need a trip to have an educational tour to Angel City.
100%.
Possibly Cologne as well.
Yeah.
We can go to Cologne.
This is it.
Yeah, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed the marathon, online marathon that this has been. I've really enjoyed it. Got a lot of stuff from that. I mean, I'd just like to thank all our speakers. You know, we do, myself and Ryan pride ourselves on the speakers that we have, and I think we've had a great selection today. I'll be sending out recordings. We've got to cut some pieces out of the recordings, but I'll be sending out the recordings. It probably won't be tomorrow. It'll be Friday. Once we've got to the editing suite, which I won't be doing the editing, by the way, Ryan, fortunately for me. But look, thank you so much for attending. We'll be live next year, back end of April, beginning of May time, in a summer transfer window slot somewhere. Thanks to you, Ryan.
Likewise.
You know, always like there, you know, keeping things flowing really nicely. You know, I've got so much out of it. Thank you so much for everyone who's attended, and we've had some great questions, comments. I've really enjoyed it. I think we're going to have to do it again, maybe an afternoon, not a whole day, which, you know, takes it out of us, doesn't it?
Good stuff. Right, thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And like Tony said, we'll be back in touch very soon. But yeah, good afternoon.
Cheers, guys. Take care.